Chapter 1016. A week later, a huge group of islands appeared in the distance in Xiao Yan's group's line of sight. According to Lu Xian, this was the main island of Beihai College. It was located in the middle of this group of islands. The largest island was the island where Beihai College had been established. Looking from afar, the main island of Beihai College was like a huge pagoda that stood in the vast sea. The lush green mountains emitted a rich life force. The pavilions built on the cliffs were almost hidden in the clouds, causing the entire island to appear like a paradise on earth. If one could sense such a scene from afar, one would not know what it would be like when one approached. Very soon, Xiao Yan's group of 5 arrived in front of the archipelago. The closer they were to the archipelago, the more beautiful the scene in front of them became. One could bluntly say that such a scene was extremely rare even in this world. Xiao Yan's heart gradually heated up as he looked at the lush green mountains in front of him and the mist that lingered in the forest. He had finally arrived at Beihai College. However, there were already people on the island who had noticed Xiao Yan's arrival at the same time that he arrived at this place. A huge statue stood at the top of a towering mountain on the main island of Beihai College. The highest point of the statue had already penetrated through the layers of clouds in the sky and was exposed to the 9 heavens. At this moment, there was a wooden pavilion at the top of the statue. There was a square table with 2 exquisite wooden teacups on it. The fragrance of tea lingered, forming a thin layer of mist that gradually spread in all directions. 2 figures were seated at the 2 ends of the wooden table. One of them was wearing a blue robe and had an aged face. If one were to take a closer look, one would find that his appearance was exactly the same as Guyu. This person was the ultimate target of Xiao Yan's trip to the Northern Sea, Hai Machin. At this moment, the person seated opposite him was a black-robed old man with a somewhat aged face that gave off a domineering aura. His square face was filled with fierce-looking muscles. A pair of deep eyes stared at the teacups on the table in front of him. A trace of tiredness was unknowingly revealed in his eyes. "Old fellow, you have been waiting here for a few months. What are you waiting for? If you don't say anything, I will return. The empty realm at the bottom of the sea has opened. Those brats have already entered." Previously, I vaguely sensed that the empty realm at the bottom of the sea was a little unstable. I don't know what's the situation now. The black-robed old man could not help but yawn. "Haha, I did not say that I would not allow you to leave. You were the one who came here on your own accord. You even drank a few pots of my good tea. Now, you are blaming me." Hai Machin teased. It was as though he was waiting for the person in front of him to leave. "TCH, don't think that I can't tell. How can I not understand you after so many years?" The black-robed old man curled his lips and continued. "I have already sensed that something was wrong with you a few years ago. You seem to be waiting for something. In particular, you have not left the academy for the past few months. You seem to be increasingly anxious and uneasy." The old man lifted his deep eyes. His brows were tightly knitted together as he stared at Hai Machin. His heart was filled with doubt and a great uneasiness. For some reason, he sensed that this old fellow, who had accompanied him for an unknown number of years, was about to leave. "Haha, that's right. I have waited for 1,000 years. This day has finally arrived." Hai Machin smiled brightly. His smile was somewhat free and easy. However, almost at the same time, the expression of the black-robed old man opposite him abruptly changed. Hai Machin's words seemed to have allowed him to understand a lot. "You are saying that person has arrived? He is already at the foot of the mountain. I believe that you will see him soon." Soon after, the 2 of them swept their eyes downwards. With their cultivation, everything that happened on the island was reflected in their eyes. Heavenly flame. It's the bone-chilling flame. Xiao Yan, who possessed a heavenly flame, was still able to hide it a little in the eyes of others. However, in the eyes of these 2 people, it appeared as though he had been stripped from inside out. Everything was revealed in the eyes of these 2 people. That's right. He has already found Guyu. Naturally, it will be me next. The reason why he came to the Northern Sea is because I am here. Hai Machin smiled. He naturally thought of Guyu when the bone-chilling flame was mentioned. "What do you plan to do? Go with him?" "This is my duty. I established the academy just to wait for this day to come. However, if this brat wants me to go with him, he will have to show me sufficient strength." Hai Machin teased. He seemed to have thought of something. You are talking about Shui Miao? That brat is indeed a good seedling. Moreover, the faction behind him seems to be extraordinary. The black-robed old man pondered for a moment before he thought of the young man who had impressed Hai Mochin. Haha, let's wait and see. I believe that there will be a good show waiting for us. At the same time, Xiao Yan had already reached the island. Under the guidance of Lu Xian, he quickly flew toward the peak of the mountain on the island. 15 minutes later, Xiao Yan and Lu Xian arrived at the peak of the mountain. There was a huge plaza at the peak of the mountain. On both sides of the plaza were large groups of buildings that surrounded the entire mountain. At this moment, there was a protruding mountain rock opposite the plaza in front of Xiao Yan and Lu Xian. The mountain rock had been cut into a platform at a height of 20 to 30 feet. There was an extremely large white statue on the platform. The statue stood at the peak of the mountain and reached into the clouds. Although one could not see the statue's face clearly, one could see that the statue's hands were placed in front of its chest and formed a strange hand seal. However, when Xiao Yan saw the huge statue for the first time, the expression in his pitch-black eyes suddenly froze. The statue's appearance was almost the same as the one he had seen in Gu Yu's cave. The only difference was that the hand seals formed by the statue's hands were different. Tu Shi ancient god, Xiao Yan muttered softly in his mouth. He could not help but be surprised that he was able to see the Tu Shi ancient god statue again. The two of them seemed to have been prepared beforehand. His gaze moved. There were many stone platforms floating around the statue. Each stone platform was connected by chains that extended beyond the clouds. Those stone platforms seemed to be stairs that led to the top of the statue. However, just as Xiao Yan was feeling curious in his heart, a middle-aged man walked toward the two of them from a certain spot in the open ground. At the same time, the latter's bell-like solemn voice was transmitted over. Beihai College is an important place. Outsiders are not allowed to trespass. Please leave. Chapter 10:17. His heavy voice reverberated across the square like the ringing of a bell. Immediately, it attracted the attention of some of the young students in the square. The middle-aged man's agility was extremely swift. By the time Xiao Yan and Lu Xian beside him turned their heads to look, the middle-aged man had already arrived in front of the two of them. This unexpected speed caused even Xiao Yan's heart to involuntarily tremble. Such a frightening speed meant that this person was likely an origin transformation expert. When Lu Xian saw the person who had arrived, a respectful expression appeared on her face. She hurriedly described what had happened on the sea a few days ago to the person in front of her. Only when the middle-aged man heard this did his originally stern expression soften slightly. At the same time, his gaze that landed on Xiao Yan also contained some surprise. Deacon Wu, Mr. Xiao Yan has come to my Beihai College in order to find an old friend of his. As a result, I brought him here to see if he could find that friend of his. The moment Lu Xian said these words, the expression in Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly became dull. Deacon. According to what Lu Xian had said, this origin transformation expert in front of him was only an ordinary deacon in Beihai College. In that case, just how strong and frightening would the strength of those in charge and the elders be? Oh, old friend? Then may I ask who this little brother is looking for? What's his name? I basically know all the students in the school. As long as you can tell me his name, I will definitely be able to help you find him. Deacon Wu raised his eyebrows slightly. He curiously looked at Xiao Yan and asked with a smile. Xiao Yan gently shook his head when he heard this. He cupped his hands together and said, Senior, the person this junior is looking for is not a student of the school. In that case, it's a teacher or an elder. That's even more convenient. There are many students in the school. Even if you tell me his name, it will be difficult to find him in a short amount of time. If it's a teacher or something like that, I have complete confidence that I can help you find him. As he spoke, Deacon Wu patted his chest with a smile. His face was filled with confidence and did not seem to be fake. In response, Xiao Yan also held on to a feeling of expectation. He respectfully cupped his hands towards Deacon Wu and said with a smile, Senior, thank you. Then I will thank you in advance. The person I am looking for is the Dean of Beihai College, Hai Mochin. As soon as these words left his mouth, whether it was Lu Xian beside Xiao Yan or Deacon Wu in front of him, the expression on their faces instantly froze. Deacon Wu's originally confident smile gradually disappeared. His eyes were filled with astonishment. He stared at Xiao Yan in disbelief. Even Lu Xian was extremely surprised. Although she had heard Xiao Yan ask about Hai Machin before, she had never thought that the so-called old friend the latter mentioned was actually the dean of Beihai College. This was really inconceivable. At this time, Deacon Wu's heart was also filled with regret. A moment ago, he had confidently answered the latter, but in the next moment, Xiao Yan's answer was like a clap of thunder, causing him to suddenly be at a loss. Hai Machin, the supreme dean of Beihai College, had been a particularly mysterious figure since the establishment of the college. All the mentor-level figures in Beihai College knew of Hai Machin's existence, but there were very few people who had actually seen him. Unfortunately, Deacon Wu had never seen Hai Machin. Since he had entered the college, he had heard a lot about Hai Machin. The latter's powerful cultivation made him yearn for it. However, as time passed, he had never seen the latter's figure. Even if he had heard several times that Hai Machin had returned to the college, he had only heard of his voice but had not seen his figure. At times, he even suspected whether such a person really existed in the college. Was there really such an expert guarding the college? From this, one could see how mysterious Hai Machin was. Even the people in the college did not know where he was. It was easier said than done to find him. This little brother, may I know what is your relationship with our dean? It was a long while later before Deacon Wu slowly opened his mouth with some hesitation. From his expression, one could tell that he was at a loss. An old friend's disciple. Xiao Yan smiled as he spoke. The so-called old friend was naturally Gu Yu. Since Xiao Yan had come to the Yuanwu continent, Gu Yu had taught him many things. Speaking of which, Xiao Yan could be considered half a disciple of Gu Yu. Deacon Wu's expression immediately became even uglier when he heard these words. His heart was filled with bitterness. It was only a long while later that he laughed dryly with a burning face. Little brother Xiao Yan, it is not that I want to deceive you, but I do not know where the dean is. Even some of the elders in the college do not know. Therefore, I hope that you can understand. Even with his cultivation at the origin transformation stage, Deacon Wu could not help but feel a little apprehensive when he heard that Gu Yu was the disciple of Hai Machin's old friend. After all, for someone to be known as Hai Machin's old friend, there was no need to think too much about the cultivation of Xiao Yan's teacher. If he offended Xiao Yan, it would be equivalent to offending his teacher. At the same time, it would be equivalent to offending Hai Machin. Xiao Yan immediately became depressed when he heard Deacon Wu's words. The latter's answer was just as Lu Xian had said. Even the elders in the college did not know where Hai Machin was. You wish to find the dean? However, it was also at this moment that a clear voice suddenly sounded in the sky. The gazes of everyone on the square immediately began to look all around. Very quickly, someone's gaze noticed a figure that had suddenly appeared high up in the sky. The figure wore the uniform of a student. He had a slender figure and a handsome appearance. When everyone noticed his figure, the figure slowly descended. He stood on the ground not far from Xiao Yan and the others. It was only now that everyone could clearly see his appearance. The man's jet-black hair was tied behind his back. It was as smooth as silk. Under his thick black eyebrows were two enchanting pitch-black eyes that seemed to be inlaid with gemstones. The corners of his eyes were slightly raised, making his eyes seem even more charming. His red lips were slightly pursed, seeming to be smiling yet not smiling. There was an indescribable sense of confidence in him, causing his aura to rise once again. With just a glance, people could not help but sigh in amazement. His appearance was imposing, high-spirited, and valiant. When this man appeared, Xiao Yan had already placed all of his attention on him. Both of his eyes narrowed as they stared intently at the latter. A long while later he finally slowly said, "Don't underestimate me. You are the current #1 person in Beihai College, Shui Miao?" "That's right." Chapter 10:18. The two words came out of his mouth without the slightest bit of modesty. Instantly, Shui Miao was like a superstar on the stage, immediately attracting the attention of everyone in the square. All of their gazes were filled with admiration and passion. The man in front of them was simply a legendary figure to them. However, the latter was now standing upright in front of them. This immediately stirred up the emotions of countless people in the square, especially the girls. They could not help but scream out loud. When all the men looked at Shui Miao, their eyes were filled with a blazing flame and some hostility. All the girls had faces filled with admiration and desire. From time to time, they would fantasize about something in their minds. Even most of the teachers were looking at Shui Miao with faces filled with amazement.
In a certain pavilion within the academy, a few old men in the robes of the academy's elders were standing before the window at this moment. Their deep eyes were focused on Shui Miao, who had appeared on the square at this moment, and their hearts were filled with slight anticipation.
This kid has been in seclusion for a few years. He's finally come out. I wonder what his cultivation is like. He's probably about to reach the origin transformation realm. The principal valued him greatly back then. His future will definitely be limitless. The origin transformation realm is only the beginning. Hee hee, you guys, don't always look at your own people. Haven't you noticed that there's something different about that black-robed kid? The old men stared at Shui Miao as they constantly sighed in amazement. Only when someone noticed Xiao Yan did they look over as well. The black robes that the kid is wearing seem to be the power of the ways? Heh, this kid isn't simple either. Another genius. And from the looks of it, there will definitely be a clash between the two dragons. The various elders could not help but click their tongues in amazement as they stared at Xiao Yan on the plaza. At the same time, some expectation appeared in their deep, old eyes. A clash between the geniuses of the younger generation was definitely going to be a good show. Moreover, such a duel wasn't just a good show for them. It was also an opportunity for the students of the academy to grow. In just a few moments, the square at the top of the mountain was surrounded by people. The appearance of Shui Miao had alarmed the entire Beihai College. All the students on the mountain swiftly gathered towards the top of the mountain. Numerous figures were like meteors flying in the sky as they swiftly rushed to the top of the mountain. Their gazes were filled with anticipation as they looked at Shui Miao, who was surrounded by a large crowd. You said earlier that you're here to look for the dean? Shui Miao narrowed his eyes and sized up Xiao Yan, as if he was scrutinizing something. Only then did he speak slowly. I'm Xiao Yan. I'm here to look for the dean of Beihai College, Hai Mochen. Xiao Yan cupped his hands and said with a smile. Do you think you can meet the dean just because you want to? I have to see him today. The two of them stared at each other. The atmosphere was tense, and the invisible void started to distort for no reason. It was Shui Miao's first time meeting Xiao Yan. However, he seemed to hold a grudge against the person in front of him, as if he had been waiting for him for a long time. Both of their eyes were sharp, and there was a fierce glint in the depths of their eyes. Flames filled Xiao Yan's eyes, but in Shui Miao's eyes, there was only a deep blue sea. After a short confrontation, the two of them were evenly matched. Sure, I know where the dean is, and I can help you meet him. However, before that, you have to get through me first. Shui Miao looked deeply at Xiao Yan. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile as he spoke with great interest. Wah! As soon as these words came out, the surrounding crowd was in an uproar. They did not expect Shui Miao to say such words to someone the moment he appeared. It was obvious that he wanted to challenge him. Xiao Yan nodded with a smile in response to Shui Miao's straightforward words. He had already noticed this the moment he saw the latter. The latter's appearance did not seem to be a coincidence. Even the way Shui Miao looked at him was different. It seemed that Hai Mochen already knew of his arrival. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth was involuntarily lifted into a smile when he thought until this point. Putting it this way, Hai Mochen should be in this academy. Moreover, it was very likely that the latter was currently staring at him. Xiao Yan's eyes involuntarily became absent-minded as this thought flashed across his heart. He looked all around him. There were many pavilions built all over this vast mountain peak. However, he could not think of any place where Hai Mochen was. It was only when Xiao Yan's gaze returned to the magnificent statue in front of him that he seemed to have thought of something. Those floating stone platforms. Then, Xiao Yan suddenly raised his gaze and looked at the top of the statue. It was hidden in the clouds, and the people in the college could not see it at all. However, if one looked down from there, it was enough to see the entire Beihai College. If Hai Mochen was looking at him at this moment and was not in one of the lofts, then the only possibility was that he was at the top of the statue. Xiao Yan's eyes, which were filled with flames, penetrated through the cloud layer. It appeared that he wanted to clearly see the sky above. However, Shui Miao, who was in front of him, quickly swept her gaze around. Her sharp gaze forced Xiao Yan to withdraw his gaze. Humph! With a satisfied smile, Shui Miao's action confirmed Xiao Yan's conjecture. Hey, this guy seems to have found you here. At the same time, at the top of the statue, the black-robed man could not help but exclaim in surprise. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Hai Mochen with interest. At this moment, the latter also had a smile on his face and nodded in gratification. Next, let's see how strong he is. At the same time, Xiao Yan and Shui Miao on the square looked at each other again. Xiao Yan smiled and imitated Shui Miao to size him up. Then he said in a flat tone, "How do you want to compete?" "Simple, let's make it quick. If you can beat me within 100 rounds, I will tell you where the dean is. If you can't beat me, then leave Beihai College and never come back." Okay. In the face of Shui Miao's powerful words, Xiao Yan did not show any weakness. Just one word, as if it contained some kind of power, set off an invisible storm in the square. The atmosphere suddenly froze at this moment. The surrounding students quickly retreated under the instruction of the mentors, leaving more than half of the square for the two who were already at daggers drawn. "I'm Shui Miao from Beihai College." The two stood in the square. Shui Miao cupped his fist to Xiao Yan and spoke slowly in a clear voice. Xiao Yan also imitated the former's tone and reported his name. "I'm Xiao Yan." Chapter 10:19. If you can defeat me in 100 exchanges, you will be able to see the headmaster. If you can't, you will leave. Shui Miao's clear shout reverberated across the plaza. With a thought, surging Do Qi immediately surged out from the vortex in his body. As his aura changed, the surrounding Genesis Qi also began to churn, transforming into a storm that lingered around Shui Miao's body. The appearance of this scene caused the faces of all the students and teachers present to reveal expressions of shock. Even the few elders in the distant building could not help but feel a wave of shock. Half-step to the origin transformation stage. This brat seems to be a little stronger than we expected. From the looks of his aura, I believe that he will be able to make an official breakthrough in less than half a year. To advance from a half-step emperor to the origin transformation stage in a short 10 years, this brat will likely become the first person in our academy to do so in the past 100 years. Shock was revealed on the faces of all the elders. Shui Miao's talent really surpassed that of an ordinary person. It was no wonder that even the headmaster favored him. "Half-step to the origin transformation stage, huh?" Xiao Yan softly muttered. He could not help but feel shocked by Shui Miao's strength. Ever since he had roamed the continent, the Shui Miao before him could be said to be the strongest person among the younger generation he had seen. The two of them were of similar age, but the latter's cultivation had already reached such a level. Just this point alone was not something that Zhou Yuan could underestimate. "I will definitely meet him." In just an instant, Xiao Yan had already recovered. He did not know whether to laugh or not. His feet gently stepped on the ground and the Do Qi within the vortex in his body abruptly swept out in all directions at this moment. Bas! Two powerful auras suddenly collided in the plaza. Soon after, they turned into a storm that dissipated together. At almost the same time, the gazes of everyone in the plaza suddenly shifted from Shui Miao's body to Xiao Yan's. Shocked expressions were revealed on every face as disbelief filled their hearts. This guy, is only a 7-star Dodi? I was wondering what his cultivation level would be. In the end, he is only a 7-star Dodi. Even among us, there are quite a few people who can suppress him. To think that he dares to act so confident when facing senior Shui Miao. This guy is too arrogant. Heh, such arrogant people should be taught a sufficient lesson. Today, Senior Shui Miao will properly teach him a lesson. Ha ha ha. The surrounding students who were watching from the sidelines had faces full of ridicule as they watched Xiao Yan display his strength on the open ground. Their words were filled with cold laughter and ridicule. Even some of the instructors and deacons could not help but throw a disappointed gaze at him. Being able to raise his cultivation to a 7-star Dodi at such an age was extremely rare among these students. This also proved Xiao Yan's talent to them. However, Xiao Yan's arrogance would likely become a large obstacle on his path to growth. Of course, not everyone thought this way. At this moment, Lu Xian's face was filled with shock as she stared at Xiao Yan. Her heart was filled with disbelief. She had once personally witnessed Xiao Yan rely on his own strength to easily suppress 5 elite Dodi. Although the strongest person among the 5 of them was merely a 6-star Dodi, under normal circumstances, such a group was not something that a 7-star Dodi could easily finish off. However, when she looked at Xiao Yan again, Lu Xian recalled everything that had happened a couple of days ago. Even if all the instructors and students present thought that Xiao Yan was only a 7-star Do-Di, she would definitely not think so. Before seeing the outcome of the matter, one could not make a rash comment. Even more so, one could not underestimate anyone because of appearances. The result of doing so would only bring about an unbearable blow to oneself. Therefore, while everyone present was laughing coldly and ridiculing Xiao Yan because of the aura that he had displayed, Shui Miao and those elders in the pavilion were staring at Xiao Yan in an extremely cautious manner. In the next moment, the battle officially began. Ha! The two people in the middle of the arena let out an explosive cry in unison. Their actions were completely in sync as they violently stomped on the ground. A frightening strength poured out at the same time. The arena shook intensely and actually caved in. The bodies of the two people also shot forward in a lightning-like manner. Bang! Their fists collided and the bodies of the two people were instantly fixed in the middle of the arena. A frightening energy storm immediately swept apart and destroyed the entire arena in an instant. In the middle of the arena, Xiao Yan and Shui Miao's eyes met. Their faces carried arrogant and unruly smiles. They were both members of the younger generation who were thought highly of. This was only the first time that the two of them had met, but they were already like fire and water. Humph! Shui Miao took half a step back after the punch landed. He clenched his right fist tightly and a surging water affinity Do-Chi immediately surged out of his body and covered his entire arm. Soon after, he once again threw a punch violently toward Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan was unwilling to be outdone. At the same time that his right fist was clenched tightly, a thick white flame covered his entire arm. The frighteningly high temperature actually caused the temperature of this place to rise significantly. Heavenly flame, huh? Shui Miao's eyes shrunk slightly. He could not help but feel a wave of shock in his heart. Bang! Soon after, an intense collision occurred once again. The energy wave formed by fire and water immediately swept to both sides with the two people in the middle. Immediately, the expressions of the instructors around the arena involuntarily changed. They hurriedly took a step forward. A substance-like Do-Chi light barrier immediately rose from the ground and blocked the energy wave the moment it swept over. Even though this was the case, the sturdy Do-Chi light barrier could not help but tremble intensely. Feeling the frightening aura that pounced from within the light barrier, the faces of all the students present involuntarily turned slightly pale. If it were not for the instructors blocking it, it was likely that they would have all fallen to the ground at this moment. In the collision just now, Xiao Yan and Shui Miao could be said to be evenly matched. The dispute between fire and water was ultimately unable to see an outcome. This also allowed them to understand that Xiao Yan was not as simple as he appeared on the surface. However, in the blink of an eye, those students who had previously boasted that they could easily suppress Xiao Yan had bitterly retreated at this moment. Xiao Yan and Shui Miao, who were in the middle of the arena, also shook their bodies. Do-Chi poured out and the two of them withdrew respectively. You are indeed not as simple as you appear on the surface. You flatter me. You are not bad yourself. Xiao Yan gently clenched his fist and parted his mouth to laugh softly. There is no need to be happy too early. This is merely the first round. Again. Shui Miao similarly laughed coldly. He clenched the 5 fingers of his right hand. Do-Chi surged and removed that numbness. Chapter 10:20. As his Do-Chi surged, blue water quickly condensed on the surface of Shui Miao's body and turned into an armor made of water. Following the agglomeration of the armor, the ground around Shui Miao's body was also covered by water. Even the air, which had become dry because of Xiao Yan's heavenly flame a moment ago, had once again become moist. Just the overflow of Do-Chi could cause changes in the world. Shui Miao's title as the #1 person in Beihai College was not just for show. As the armor condensed, Shui Miao's palm turned and the storage ring on his finger flashed. Immediately, a black spear appeared in his hand. Suddenly, a biting cold murderous aura spread out from it. However, from this aura, one could imagine how much blood this spear had been stained with. Let's see how you're going to defeat me within 100 rounds. Whale plundering spear. Raging whale tsunami. Shui Miao's face was cold and his eyes were cold. With a twist of his wrist, the spear in his hand rotated. The tip of the spear landed on the ground and pierced into the water around him. Then, it swept across the water fiercely. The water splashed and condensed rapidly in mid-air. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge wave that blocked in front of Shui Miao. The latter's feet violently stomped on the ground.
His body immediately rose and gently landed on the top of this enormous wave. The tip of the spear that was overflowing with a cold glow once again drew across the surface of the water. The wave immediately pounced toward Xiaoyan from all directions. "Can't I dodge it?" Looking at the huge wave that had covered more than half of the square in the blink of an eye, Xiaoyan's eyes flickered slightly. He felt the turbulent aura coming from it, and his heart was secretly in awe. With a thought, the majestic Do Qi in his body suddenly burst out. With a flip of his hand, the black dark heavy buster sword immediately fell into his hand. His left hand fiercely slashed across the body of the buster sword. The blazing white flame immediately climbed onto the buster sword. The blazing heat also spread out. 7-layered sky-breaking ruler. 1 buster sword. After swinging the buster sword, Xiaoyan's standing body suddenly twisted. Without hesitation, he turned around and swung another 2 buster sword. 3 majestic buster lights seemed to want to separate the sky and the earth. In the blink of an eye, they had all merged together. Outside the square, countless students revealed shocked faces as they watched the scene in front of them. The blood in their bodies also began to boil. A battle of water and fire. This could be said to be a battle between 2 old enemies. After the collision earlier, everyone present clearly understood that if the cultivations of these 2 people were to be compared, it would be impossible to determine the victor. Currently, the only thing that the 2 of them could compare was their own combat experience and the Do skills that they had grasped. In this kind of battle, rich combat experience and powerful Do techniques would undoubtedly become the key to determining victory or defeat. When the shocking huge wave that spanned across the plaza collided with the majestic ruler light that stood between heaven and earth, the entire plaza instantly quietened down. Everyone held their breaths in concentration as they stared fixedly at the center of the plaza, waiting for the next second to arrive. Boom! Soon after, blue and white lights intertwined and filled the entire square. In an instant, the vision of all the students outside the battlefield was blocked. They only heard a deafening explosion sound. Everyone's vision became unusually blurry. Only the instructors and the leaders of the various parties could still clearly see the situation of the battle. The frightening energy storm violently struck the energy barrier outside the square. The entire square trembled intensely. Everything within the battle circle had already been destroyed. When the dazzling light gradually dimmed, an intense sound of metal colliding was emitted from within the battle circle. Everyone looked over in the direction of the sound. They saw that within the battle circle, Xiao Yan and Shui Miao were both waving the weapons in their hands and clashing intensely with each other. In the air, Shui Miao held a long spear in his hand and displayed his spear technique. The sharp tip of the spear was like a poisonous snake as it swiftly pierced towards the vital parts of Xiao Yan's body. The tip of the spear easily tore through the air, bringing about an ear-piercing sonic boom as it rapidly approached Xiao Yan's throat. Facing Shui Miao's lightning-like attack, Xiao Yan did not show any signs of weakness. Even though the heavy Xian ruler in his hand was relatively larger, in Xiao Yan's hand, his brandishing was not the slightest bit slower than the long spear in Shui Miao's hand. Seeing that the tip of the spear was already in front of him, Xiao Yan waved the huge ruler in his hand and immediately blocked in front of him. In a burst of sparks, the long spear was blocked. Ding! However, immediately after, the tip of the spear strangely arrived at Xiao Yan's knee. The tip of the spear was swift and fierce as it ruthlessly swept across. However, it narrowly missed Xiao Yan's knee. Despite having dodged the tip of the spear, Xiao Yan's pants were easily torn apart by the sharp Do Qi that was contained on the tip of the spear. It even left behind a thin trace of blood on the skin under it. Feeling the slight chill from his knee, Xiao Yan suddenly swept his huge ruler horizontally and smashed it towards Shui Miao's head. The latter sneered and lifted his spear in an attempt to block Xiao Yan's attack. Clang! The moment the huge ruler and the spear collided, a frightening force suddenly poured out. Shui Miao's expression also changed drastically at this moment. He had never imagined that this attack from Xiao Yan would actually contain such a frightening force. The long spear was swiftly bent under the frightening strength. The entire body of the spear was smashed into an extremely strange and dangerous arc. The 2 rubbed against each other and sparks shot out. Only when Xiao Yan withdrew the enormous ruler did Shui Miao's body involuntarily take a couple of steps back. The long spear in his hand was still trembling intensely, causing both of his hands, which were holding the long spear, to swiftly become numb. Even the spot between his thumb and index finger had been shaken apart and fresh blood immediately surged. In this collision, Shui Miao had suffered a small loss. A large part of the reason could only be blamed on him underestimating his opponent and the strength contained in Xiao Yan's body.
Humph, it's the 30th round.
Again. Whale plundering spear, whale dragon appear.
With a chill in his heart, Shui Miao no longer dared to be careless in front of Xiao Yan.
His hand violently cut across the body of the spear and the trembling body of the spear immediately calmed down.
With a thought, Do Qi surfaced on the long spear.
In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a ferocious beast that wrapped around the body of the spear and hid it within. It rushed out with the long spear, drawing an extremely strange arc in the air as it approached Xiao Yan's throat with lightning-like speed.
Xiao Yan's expression sunk as he sensed the frightening aura emitted from the ferocious beast.
He could not help but feel a solemn feeling in his heart. Holding the huge ruler in his hand, a vast and mighty spiritual strength immediately surged out from between his eyebrows.
In an instant, he saw through the killing move hidden under the ferocious beast. While his body retreated, he lifted the heavy Xian ruler in his hand. Flames surged as he violently hacked a trajectory in front of him from top to bottom. As the huge ruler descended, a ferocious strength tore apart the illusionary figure of the ferocious beast. Following which, the ruler's strength did not diminish as it violently collided with the seemingly invisible tip of the spear below. The illusionary figure of the ferocious beast was instantly shattered. However, there was nothing below it. When the people outside the arena saw this, they could not help but feel anxious in their hearts. If Xiao Yan's attack missed, the price he would have to pay would not be easy to bear.
However, in the next instant, under the broad blade of the heavy Xian ruler, the tip of the spear that carried a cold light suddenly appeared.
After which, it violently collided with the heavy Xian ruler. Chapter 1021.
Clang. As the ruler fell, the thick blade of the ruler violently collided with the tip of the spear.
A powerful force immediately surged out.
A dense white flame swiftly spread from the huge ruler and climbed onto the cold glint of the tip of the spear. However, at the same time, a vast and mighty water affinity Do Qi also pounced over and pounced into the flame without any hesitation, competing with each other.
Besides this, the powerful force of the heavy ruler, supported by Xiao Yan's force, forcefully bent the spear. Shui Miao, who had attacked first, was sent flying back by Xiao Yan's heavy ruler, causing him to cut a rather sorry figure. Astonishment involuntarily flashed across Shui Miao's eyes at the fact that such a concealed attack had been detected by Xiao Yan.
However, before he could ponder any further, the frightening force had already spread along the spear.
Damn it! What frightening physical strength! A frightening force was transmitted from the spear once again, causing Shui Miao's arms to tremble uncontrollably. He tightly clenched his teeth, and as his expression changed, an even more turbulent Do Qi swept outwards. Even the surrounding Genesis Qi began to move along the spear, charging towards the raging thick white flames and the heavy Xian ruler. At this moment, Shui Miao's powerful half-step origin transformation stage strength was fully displayed.
Humph!
The trembling spear immediately stabilized under the cover of the boundless Do Qi.
Soon after, a cold snort sounded as his hand viciously slammed against the spear.
The spear, which had just regained its straight shape, immediately began to bend once again. The spear abruptly pressed forward under the cover of Do Qi, causing the falling heavy ruler to be forcefully repelled.
Let go!
Taking advantage of the fact that the giant ruler was repelled by the spear, Shui Miao immediately let out a roar. He suddenly gripped the spear with both hands and forcefully shook it. The tip of the spear immediately began to sway at high speed, continuously colliding with the giant ruler, causing it to sway uncontrollably. Subsequently, the tip of the spear strangely twisted, causing sparks to fly. A powerful force erupted, borrowing the force from the spear to send the heavy Xian ruler flying from Xiao Yan's hands.
Admit defeat.
After knocking away Xiao Yan's weapon, Shui Miao's expression suddenly became fierce.
He withdrew his spear and suddenly rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Xiao Yan.
His right hand held the spear, and his left hand turned into a claw. He viciously tore at Xiao Yan's chest. However, in the face of Shui Miao's ferocious attacks, Xiao Yan did not cower in the slightest. He allowed Shui Miao's ferocious claws to pounce on him as he suddenly clenched his hands into fists. At this moment, all the strength in his body was mobilized. Slash! In merely an instant, the black-colored robe on the surface of Xiao Yan's body was easily torn apart. Soon after, a sharp hand claw landed on Xiao Yan's chest without any reduction in strength. Clang, clang, clang. After the robe was torn apart, Shui Miao's claws landed on Xiao Yan's chest. Then, a crisp sound of metal colliding rang out. When everyone present, including Shui Miao, looked over, the scene that appeared at this moment made everyone stunned. At this moment, Xiao Yan's body was covered by a layer of purple-gold scales. Shui Miao's attack landed on Xiao Yan's chest, but it was completely blocked. What? Shui Miao's pupils suddenly shrank. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. He stomped his feet heavily in the air, and his body immediately shot backward. Force elephant tactic. However, at the same time, Xiao Yan suddenly followed up. He raised his right fist, and a terrifyingly powerful force rapidly gathered in his palm. He threw a punch, and it fiercely blasted toward Shui Miao's chest, who was close at hand. Shui Miao did not dare to be the slightest bit careless in the face of this punch from Xiao Yan. He did not have that strange protective scale armor. Should he be struck by this punch, it was likely that he would instantly lose his fighting strength. At the critical moment, Shui Miao instantly used the long spear in his right hand to block in front of him. The surging dou qi in his body also swarmed out and poured into the long spear without reservation, using this to block Xiao Yan's punch. Clang! When the fist landed, the entire place immediately emitted a buzzing sound. Everyone's eardrums involuntarily trembled intensely. Xiao Yan's fist violently smashed onto the long spear. A frightening strength instantly erupted. At this moment, this fleshy fist was even stronger than the long spear in front of him, which was made from a special material. At the moment when the two collided, the long spear's hard body, which was supported by dou qi, was still unstoppably bent rapidly until it was pressed against Shui Miao's chest. The latter could not help but let out a muffled groan. Bang! It was also at this moment that Shui Miao's clothes suddenly burst open. He lost control of his entire body in an instant, and rapidly fell to the ground below. Before he landed on the ground, the terrifying force had already blasted a huge crater in the already dilapidated square below. Shui Miao's body was ruthlessly smashed into the crater and buried deep inside. Outside the arena, everyone's faces were filled with shock as they watched the scene that had appeared in the arena. They really did not dare to believe their eyes. The number one person in Beihai College, Shui Miao, had already been defeated? Moreover, he had actually been defeated in the hands of a 7-star dou di. It was likely that no one would believe it even if they told this to anyone. The arena was completely silent. Those instructors also frowned one after another. Their hearts were filled with shock as they watched the huge pit that was filled with dust in the middle of the arena. This Xiao Yan, who had suddenly appeared, had already brought them too much shock within this short period of time. Within the pavilion, those elders from the academy were also similarly watching Xiao Yan in the sky above the arena with surprise. Only Hai Machin and the black-robed old man, who were currently high up, were staring at Xiao Yan below with great interest. The former was still all right. As for the latter, when he saw the purple gold scale armor that had surfaced on Xiao Yan's body, even with the latter's mental fortitude, his expression involuntarily changed. Who is this brat? Why does he have something from the ancient void dragon tribe? Dragon scale armor. No, it also doesn't seem to be. I have seen a dragon scale armor before. Although it is extraordinary, it is far from being comparable to the one on his body. This brat seems to be carrying quite a number of secrets on him. The black-robed old man, who was originally indifferent to many things, was currently feeling a little curious about Xiao Yan because of the things on his body. It was also at this moment that a low and deep voice was faintly emitted from within the enormous pit on the square below. I have to say that I have indeed underestimated you previously. I did not expect your physical strength to be so strong. Next, I should also take out some real things. Following the appearance of the voice, a dense fog suddenly permeated the air within this battleground that had been formed by the instructor's ability. At the same time, Shui Miao, whose upper body was naked, once again flew up. Each time his feet gently stepped on empty air, a small puddle of water would form under his feet. When his body once again arrived in front of Xiao Yan, 9 water curtains were agglomerated around him. This is the Great Way of Water. Looking at the 9 water curtains that had formed around Shui Miao, Xiao Yan could not help but softly mutter and smile with interest. Chapter 1022. The Strength of the Great Way. That's right. Senior Shui Miao still has the strength of the Great Way.
Back then, when Senior was still a 5-star Dodi, there were rumors that he had comprehended the strength of the Great Way. Now that I have seen it, it is actually the Great Way of Water, which is the same attribute as him.
Previously, Senior had been giving way to this kid. Now that he has unleashed the strength of the Great Way, this Xiaoyan is definitely going to lose. On the square, when the group of students saw the 9 water curtains condensed around Shui Miao, their faces immediately revealed a fanatical expression. Even though the strength that Xiaoyan had displayed earlier was quite extraordinary, this was only a part of it. In front of the strength of the Great Way, all of Xiaoyan's advantages would be greatly reduced. The strength of the Great Way was the most mysterious strength in this world. There were very few people in the world who could comprehend it. However, those who could comprehend the strength of the Great Way were definitely not comparable to ordinary experts of the same level. Even though Xiaoyan's combat strength was extraordinary, in front of the strength of the Great Way, it was difficult for him to unleash his usual extraordinary combat strength. His 9 das? I remember that a few years ago, this kid had only comprehended 6 das. Now, he has actually successfully condensed 9 das. It seems that not only has his behavior improved in these few years, but even his great path energy has not fallen behind. Haha. He is indeed worthy of being the person that even the headmaster thinks highly of. Once this kid grows up, he will definitely be a giant in the future. Hee, but I am curious. What is the strength of the Great Way of the one called Xiaoyan? Just as all the elders were amazed by Shui Miao, the elder who had first noticed Xiaoyan laughed again at this moment. He had a feeling that this Xiaoyan seemed to be a little unusual. Hearing this, the other elders beside him also glanced at Xiaoyan curiously, but then they shook their heads. Although they didn't know what kind of power of the Great Way Xiaoyan had mastered, his cultivation was still low after all, and he must not have comprehended the power of the Great Way for a long time. At this moment, Shui Miao had already cast the power of the Great Way, so Xiaoyan was about to be defeated. At the same time, the Shui Miao in front of Xiaoyan moved again. Just as the surrounding people were discussing, Shui Miao suddenly inserted his right hand into a water curtain beside him. Then, with a sudden pull, the entire water curtain was distorted. Pulling it in front of him, Shui Miao swiped his hands across it, and the water curtain immediately shrank and lengthened. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a long spear completely condensed from the power of the Great Path. This is materialization of the Great Tao. Materialization of the Great Tao.
Just as the long spear in Shui Miao's hand materialized, in the pavilion in the distance, a burst of exclamations suddenly sounded.
A group of elders couldn't even believe their eyes.
Materialization of the Great Tao required a special understanding of the power of the Great Way to be able to materialize it. Back then, when this group of old guys comprehended the materialization of the Great Tao, they suffered a lot and spent a lot of time.
However now, Shui Miao's actions shocked them.
Ordinary people knew that the power of the Great Way was extremely difficult to comprehend. However, they did not know that even if one comprehended the power of the Great Way, one would still have to face great difficulties in controlling it like one's own arm. The solidification of the Great Way was the greatest obstacle after comprehending the power of the Great Way.
This kid. His rate of growth is far more terrifying than we expected. In the pavilion, several elders took a deep breath and said slowly with shock on their faces. Hee, not bad. 3 water screens in 3 years. This kid is not bad. However, compared to Xiaoyan, there's still a gap. Above the clouds, the black-robed man smiled as he looked down at Shui Miao, who was displaying the power of the Great Way. He chuckled, but there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Seeing this, Hai Mochen shrugged helplessly. Xiaoyan, I can feel that you also have the aura of the power of the Great Way. Come, let's determine the winner with the power of the Great Way. A clear shout reverberated between heaven and earth. When the surrounding students heard Shui Miao's words, their expressions changed. They didn't expect that even Xiaoyan had also mastered the power of the Great Way. Since you're so kind as to invite me, I'll reluctantly accept. Xiaoyan smiled. A thought passed through his mind and the invisible space around him suddenly became distorted. Soon after, a bang sounded and it burst apart. Waves of mysterious pitch-black energy surged out from the dark shadow. Moreover, it also intertwined and condensed around Xiaoyan, turning into one curtain after another. The expressions on the faces of Shui Miao and those elders from the academy involuntarily changed the moment they saw the strange energy. Numerous gazes of disbelief stared intently at the dark black curtain that was agglomerated around Xiaoyan. The shock in their hearts was extremely great. Hiss. This is actually the void, the great way of the void. This Xiaoyan. He has actually comprehended the great way of the void. This is really shocking. When the elders recognized the great way that Xiaoyan had grasped, endless shock surged into their hearts. They had never dared to imagine that Xiaoyan could actually comprehend the great way of the void. If the great way that Shui Miao had revealed was enough to make them feel amazed, then the great way of the void that they saw right now was enough to shock them. The great way of the void was at the top of all the great ways. Its uniqueness could be described as heaven-defying. In the history of the entire continent, anyone who could grasp the great way of the void was an extremely powerful existence. They even stood at the very top of the pyramid of the entire continent. Just this point alone was enough to imagine how terrifying the great way of the void was. However, the shock that Xiaoyan gave them was far from over. Everyone present watched one tent after another agglomerating around Xiaoyan's body with their own eyes. The expressions on their faces also became increasingly exaggerated. Even those elders from the academy also had stunned expressions. 7, 8, 9, 10. There were a total of 10 curtains. Just based on the number of great ways that had condensed, Xiaoyan had already surpassed Shui Miao. At this moment, the word disbelief was written all over everyone's faces. Shui Miao, who stood opposite Xiaoyan, had an extremely grave expression on his handsome face. The more he interacted with the person before him, the more he could feel how terrifying the person before him was. In the entire continent, there were not many people among the younger generation who could make him treat them like this. However, Xiaoyan, whose origins were unknown, was now bound to join the ranks. In fact, in comparison, Xiaoyan and those fellows made him feel even more threatened. Xiaoyan, surnamed Xiao. Could it be? But that can't be right. I know those fellows in his family very well. There hasn't been such a person in recent years. Who exactly is he? Shui Miao's gaze focused on Xiaoyan in front of him. A suspicious emotion suddenly surged from deep within his eyes. Xiaoyan had caused him to suddenly recall a certain clan on the continent. However, after thinking about it in his heart, he decided to dispel this thought. With his confidence, that family could not nurture such an outstanding person. Moreover, Xiaoyan had said that he was the disciple of Hai Machen's old friend. He did not think that Hai Machen would have any connection with that family. Moreover, if Xiaoyan really came from that family, then it was impossible for him not to recognize him. However, from Xiaoyan's series of actions, the latter did not seem to recognize him. What he knew was limited to the name, Shui Miao. Huff! Shui Miao withdrew his thoughts. His breathing trembled as he exhaled a long breath. He did his best to calm his heart. It was a long while later before he raised the long spear in his hand, faced Xiaoyan, and spoke in a dense tone. Again. Chapter 10:23. Echoes drifted across the square. Xiaoyan beckoned with his hand, and the heavy Xian ruler that was stuck into the ground in the distance flew over and landed in his hand. This time, Xiaoyan kept it in his storage ring. Immediately after, his body shook slightly as he immediately activated the golden elephant art. Force gathered on the surface of his body as if it had substance, transforming into a shield that protected Xiaoyan within. The perfect combination of the golden elephant art and the dragon phoenix ancient armor would raise Xiaoyan's defense to a whole new level. Moreover, this was only a display of Xiaoyan's physical defense. Shui Miao's expression changed once again when he saw the golden barrier that had formed on the surface of Xiaoyan's body. His gaze carefully swept over the barrier. After some probing, he was shocked to discover that the barrier was not Do Qi or Genesis Qi. Instead, it was agglomerated from pure energy. The materialization of power. How is this possible? There is still someone in the world who can materialize physical power. The scene in front of him was really too shocking. It was very difficult to imagine that Xiaoyan in front of him not only had a great cultivation, but he had also advanced his great Tao strength and physical strength to such an extent. This could really be called shocking. Even in his own clan, no one had been able to reach such a level since ancient times. Unfortunately, if Shui Miao knew that Xiaoyan was a rank 4 alchemist, it was unknown what kind of expression he would have on his face. He had always been a proud son of heaven in everyone's eyes. No matter where he went, he would always be worshipped and respected. However, it wasn't until he saw Xiaoyan that he understood what it meant to say that there was always someone better than you. Compared to the latter, he was indeed much worse. However, this couldn't make him admit defeat. Before the outcome was clear, one couldn't jump to conclusions. Before the outcome was clear, how could one easily judge who would win or lose? Although Xiaoyan was strong, there was still a gap between their cultivation levels. If they went all out, it wasn't certain who would win. Ha! Retracting his gaze, Shui Miao didn't hesitate for a moment. As the golden light gathered around Xiaoyan's body, he abruptly dashed forward and swung the spear in his hand. The sharp tip of the spear viciously slashed towards Xiaoyan's throat. Wherever the body of the spear passed, the invisible void was immediately covered with a layer of water. The entire spear was like a blue wind banner waving in the air, but its incomparably fast speed and fierce aura still caused people to not dare to underestimate it. The spear arrived in front of Xiaoyan in the blink of an eye. The sharp tip of the spear streaked across the void and directly aimed at Xiaoyan's throat. Facing this spear that was condensed from the power of the Great Way, Xiaoyan didn't dare to be careless. To be honest, this was his first time fighting against the power of the Great Way. After seeing the power of the 10 steel needles in his hand, Xiaoyan had a deeper understanding of the power of the Great Way. At this moment, how could he dare to underestimate the power of the Great Way? Just as the long spear was swiftly approaching his throat, Xiaoyan swiftly raised his arms and placed them vertically in front of him. His left and right arms crossed each other and destroyed the long spear that had already appeared in front of his throat. The powerful force was like a hot knife through butter. The spear only lasted for a moment before it suddenly exploded into water droplets and scattered in all directions. However, before Xiaoyan could come back to his senses, the spear that had just exploded a moment ago was quickly reformed by the water droplets that spread up from behind. In the blink of an eye, it had once again returned to its original state. Its imposing manner wasn't inferior to before. The sharp tip of the spear ruthlessly streaked across Xiaoyan's throat, but it brought about a crisp sound that sounded like the collision of gold and iron. The sharp tip of the spear pressed against Xiaoyan's throat, and even his breathing felt a little sluggish. Although the Golden Elephant tactic and Dragon Phoenix ancient armor isolated him, Xiaoyan still felt a strong sense of threat. The expression in his eyes changed immediately, and he quickly destroyed the spear in front of him again. At the same time, his figure hurriedly retreated. It was only when he was 100 feet away that Xiaoyan saw clearly that the spear that he had destroyed a moment ago had actually returned to its original state in the blink of an eye under the rapid replenishment of the water droplets. What a strange great Tao of water! Xiaoyan quietly exclaimed in his heart. Only then did he bitterly rub his neck. It was all thanks to the protection of the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor and the Golden Elephant skill. Otherwise, it was likely that he would have turned into a corpse if he had been caught off guard. The power of the Great Tao far surpasses Battle Qi and Genesis Qi in terms of energy replenishment and operation. Therefore, weapons formed by the Great Tao recover at an extremely fast speed. It's impossible to destroy my whale plunderer spear with brute force alone. Shui Miao generously explained when he saw the look of surprise on Xiaoyan's face. If it was someone who had some understanding of the power of the Great Tao, they would never be stupid enough to destroy a weapon with brute force. From this point alone, he could tell that Xiaoyan didn't have a deep understanding of the power of the Great Tao. Oh, thank you for your guidance. Xiaoyan smiled. It was a good idea to make friends in battle. However, Shui Miao didn't seem to think so. I'm telling you because I don't want to take advantage of you, but that's not a reason for me to give in to you. With a cold snort, Shui Miao's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Xiaoyan in the blink of an eye. The spear in his hand suddenly swung out, aiming straight for Xiaoyan's head. With Xiaoyan's entire body protected by a protective shield, only by attacking his vital points would he have a greater chance of winning. However, as the saying goes, a fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. After what happened just now, Xiaoyan naturally wouldn't let the spear in the guy's hand touch him so easily again. When the spear swept over again, Xiaoyan's footwork changed, and he instantly performed the heaven extinction step. His body swayed from side to side, flashing and jumping like a shadow. No matter how fast Shui Miao's whale plunderer spear was, it still couldn't touch Xiaoyan's body. When the spear penetrated Xiaoyan's body, Shui Miao came back to his senses repeatedly. Every time he stabbed, it was just an afterimage left by Xiaoyan's body. Even if there were occasional collisions, They were all resolved by Xiao Yan's mysterious fire. This led to a stalemate between the two sides after dozens of collisions. In the face of Xiao Yan's strange speed, even with the power of the great Tao of water, Shui Miao still couldn't do anything. Every time he saw that his attack was about to land on Xiao Yan, the latter's body suddenly slipped away like a loach. No matter how fierce his attack was, it was useless in the end. Damn it, do you only know how to dodge? In addition to feeling helpless, Shui Miao's heart was also filled with anger. The person in front of him was obviously holding back, but he still didn't show it. This made him a little annoyed. Ha! Let's see how you dodge this time. Whale plunder a spear. Angry sea whale serpent. With a low shout, Shui Miao's body, which was originally rushing forward, suddenly stopped in the void. His body came to a standstill, and the long spear in his hand suddenly swung. Suddenly, the water rippled, and the battle circle where the two were was immediately filled with surging waves. In the deep water, a huge sea beast could be vaguely seen, surrounding Xiao Yan in heavy waves. Great Tao of water. Water moon mirror flower. Soon after, another cry sounded. The 8 water curtains that were suspended behind Shui Miao immediately shot out. They transformed into numerous rays of light that entered the wave. Moreover, they swiftly expanded, transforming into 8 enormous water curtains that stood in front of the sea beast. That sea beast also passed through them head-on. After which, it split into 2, until it split into 9 enormous sea beasts that roamed within the narrow space and surrounded Xiao Yan. Let's see how you dodge my attack. Furious sea whale dragon, kill! With a fierce shout, the 9 giant sea beasts under the waves suddenly twisted their huge bodies, driving the entire water area, and rushed fiercely toward Xiao Yan without any blind spots. It was impossible to dodge such an attack. At this moment, all the students outside the arena widened their eyes as they stared fixedly at the shocking scene in the arena. Their faces were filled with fanaticism. Such a vast battle scene was extremely rare to see on a normal day. Now that they had seen it, it could be said to be extremely shocking. Especially the 9 giant sea beasts in the deep water. Even some of the teachers outside the field could not help but be slightly shocked when they saw them. Facing the giant sea beasts, even they felt a faint pressure. Shui Miao's attack could not be said to be weak. The shocking waves blocked all of Xiao Yan's escape routes, and the 9 giant sea beasts rushed toward Xiao Yan from all directions. The waves rolled and the giant sea beasts pounced wildly, but Xiao Yan's face was still calm. With a thought, 9 pitch-black curtains suddenly condensed around him, surrounding Xiao Yan entirely. Then, a huge amount of soul power gushed out from between his eyebrows. Humph, do you want to use the power of the Great Path to forcefully resist it? It's not that easy. Shui Miao snorted coldly when he saw this scene. Immediately after, the 9 giant sea beasts bombarded the 9 pitch-black curtains in front of everyone's eyes. However, there was no earth-shattering explosion as expected. The 9-headed sea beast and the endless waves collided with the great way of the void. It was as if they had plunged headfirst into the endless void, constantly surging into it. Even a small portion of the 9-headed sea beast was swallowed up by the great way of the void. Damn it! Shui Miao had underestimated the power of the great path of the void. In the face of the endless void, Shui Miao's attack was like a turbulent river being led into a new river channel. Most of the power was diverted. In the end, the enormous power contained in the 9 giant sea beasts barely destroyed the 9 curtains. The 9 curtains slowly dissipated, and the black-robed Xiao Yan once again appeared in Shui Miao's sight. Swoosh! This time, Shui Miao did not hesitate at all. He held the spear and pierced through the void. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Xiao Yan. He did not expect that Xiao Yan would be able to easily neutralize the fighting skill that he performed by combining the power of the Great Path. Now, he could not give his opponent any chance. He would not allow his opponent to defeat him without even using his trump card. The long spear violently pierced toward Xiao Yan's head. However, it was easily dodged by Xiao Yan. The two figures also brushed past each other due to this. Whale reaping spear, swallow return. However, at this moment, when the two of them brushed past each other, Shui Miao suddenly flipped the spear so that the tip of the spear was at the back and the handle was at the front. At the same time, he let go of the spear in his hand, bent his body backward, and kicked the handle of the spear heavily. Suddenly, the spear that had brushed past Xiao Yan shot towards Xiao Yan's back again in the blink of an eye. It was approaching Xiao Yan's back at a rapid speed. In the next moment, there was a piercing sound. Under everyone's gaze, the tip of the spear pierced through Xiao Yan's back and chest. Hua! Instantly, the crowd outside the arena was in an uproar. Numerous shocked gazes fell on Xiao Yan, whose chest had been pierced through. They never expected that even though Xiao Yan had the great path of the void, he would still be defeated by Shui Miao in the end. From the beginning to the end, they did not see Xiao Yan use any powerful fighting skills. It was not just these people. Even Shui Miao, who had recovered at this moment, was extremely shocked. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Shui Miao's eyes focused on Xiao Yan, whose chest had been penetrated in one strike. He was actually a little dull for a moment. He did not dare to believe that the chest of Xiao Yan, whose defensive strength was so strong, would be penetrated by his attack at this moment. This caused him to feel disbelief. However, at a certain moment, Shui Miao seemed to have suddenly noticed something. There seemed to be something wrong with Xiao Yan's aura. Xiao Yan, who should have been an advanced 7-star Do D, was currently emitting an aura that was only an intermediate 7-star Do D. This, Shui Miao's eyes hardened. He had a bad feeling in his heart. However, at this moment, Xiao Yan slowly turned his head. A mocking smile appeared on his face. Immediately, his entire body became transparent at a speed visible to the naked eye. Within a few breaths' time, he had disappeared in front of Shui Miao's eyes. He disappeared. While feeling shocked in his heart, Shui Miao also clearly sensed a dangerous aura rapidly approaching from behind him. He could not care less. He withdrew his spear, turned around and thrust it forward. However, at the instant Shui Miao turned his head, a dangerous aura that caused his soul to feel a wave of horror had already appeared in front of his brows like a ghost. In an instant, the spear in Shui Miao's hand that was supposed to thrust forward suddenly stopped. His entire body was fixed in place like a statue. Cold sweat swiftly surged out and covered his entire body. A deep suffocating feeling was transmitted from deep within his soul. Shui Miao only felt that his entire body had nearly fallen into an endless abyss. If he had been a second slower, it was likely that he would have been instantly killed by that strength. When Shui Miao focused his gaze, which was filled with shock, he saw a palm-long pitch-black steel needle floating between his eyebrows. It was this steel needle that had nearly sent him to the gates of hell. However, when Shui Miao felt the special aura on this steel needle, endless shock immediately surged in his heart. This great Tao. Solidification. Endless shock instantly filled Shui Miao's heart. He had originally thought that he had clearly recognized the gap between him and Xiao Yan. However, the scene in front of him had overturned all of his judgments of Xiao Yan. The latter's excellence and strength had far exceeded his imagination. Thinking until this point, Shui Miao finally let out a deep self-mocking sigh. He lowered his head and said with a bitter face, "I have lost." Chapter 1024. I've lost. The 3 words left his mouth slowly, but all the students present were instantly stunned. No one could have imagined that the outcome would be so unexpected. What was even more unexpected was that the #1 student of Beihai College, Shui Miao, would actually lose. Recalling the whole process of the battle, it seemed simple and monotonous. It was almost all about Shui Miao's attacks. His attacks were fierce and overbearing, dazzling everyone who saw it. In the face of such an attack, an ordinary person could forget about defeating it. Just enduring 100 exchanges would be an extremely difficult thing. However, Xiao Yan was able to calmly face it during the entire process. His agility, which could be called ghost-like, caused everyone present to feel greatly surprised. The thing that shocked them the most was the scene earlier. In the face of Shui Miao's furious sea whale dragon, everyone present believed that it was impossible for them to escape. However, Xiao Yan easily resolved the crisis with the help of the power of the Void Great Way. That avatar of Xiao Yan's had caused everyone present to believe that it was real. However, no one expected that the appearance of Xiao Yan's actual body would cause Shui Miao to admit defeat in the blink of an eye. One could imagine just what kind of gap existed between the two of them. Imagine, if Xiao Yan had gone all out from the beginning, would Shui Miao still have a chance to hold on until now? At this moment, the students in the field were worried about Shui Miao. They had completely forgotten the disdain and ridicule they had when they first saw Xiao Yan. In the void outside the crowd, several college elders looked at the unscathed Shui Miao in the field and heaved a sigh of relief.
The latter was not only the most outstanding student of Beihai College in the past 100 years, but his identity was also particularly special. If Xiao Yan had pierced him with that needle, not only would it have brought trouble to the college, but even Xiao Yan's life would have been in danger. However, putting aside all of this, the strength that Xiao Yan had displayed had once again caused these old fellows from the academy to be shocked.
The agglomeration of the Great Tao. Originally, they had thought that being able to see Shui Miao achieve this was already considered a monster. However, Xiao Yan's appearance caused them to truly feel that this wild brat of unknown origin was actually even more heaven-defying. Is this boy really the disciple of the dean's old friend? That's really scary. When this little guy grows up in the future, I'm afraid he will become another giant in this world. The elders looked at each other and saw the deep shock in each other's eyes. At the same time, Xiao Yan in the field also withdrew the pitch-black steel needle that was suspended between Shui Miao's eyebrows. Shui Miao was still in a state of shock as he looked at the human figure that had appeared in front of him in a ghost-like manner. Only when he saw the steel needle being kept by Xiao Yan did he sense the frightening aura that was pressuring his heart gradually disappear. At the same time, at the top of the statue, the black-robed elder and Hai Machin both sighed softly. This little guy is really unexpected. Until now, it seems that he hasn't really used his trump card. The black-robed elder involuntarily clicked his tongue and exclaimed. By the side, Hai Machin's face also revealed a pleased expression.
The strength that Xiao Yan had displayed had caused him to have some confidence in the latter.
Little fellow, you are not bad.
However, you must not disappoint Gu Yu's expectations of you. Are you a member of that clan?
Although he still didn't dare to believe it, Shui Miao still couldn't help but ask. He didn't believe that in this continent, other than that clan, there was another clan with the surname Xiao that could nurture such a genius expert. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows in surprise when he heard this. He immediately smiled and shook his head. Clan? I'm sorry, I don't belong to any clan. Shui Miao was slightly startled when he saw that Xiao Yan's expression did not appear to be fake. He withdrew the thought in his heart and mocked himself. He had really placed too much importance on the strength of his clan. Even if one did not have the support of a strong foundation, one could still become a strong person if one possessed sufficient talent.
There were many such examples in the history of the continent.
Shui Miao, if my guess is correct, Hai Machin should be at the top of this stone statue.
I think that there is only one place in this academy where one can observe our battle without being discovered.
Xiao Yan smiled. His smile contained some craftiness. He was not so certain. However, Shui Miao's actions earlier in order to divert his attention had allowed him to confirm this point.
The reason why he asked again was merely to confirm it.
Your guess is correct. However, there is one thing that I need to correct. Shui Miao nodded. Only then did he use a voice that only the two of them could hear to whisper to Xiao Yan. My name is not Shui Miao. My name is Chen. I believe that we will meet again in the future. At that time, I will face you with an even stronger cultivation. I will definitely defeat you. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows. He did not expect this guy to use an alias. Although he did not know why, he still remembered his real name in his heart. Chen. Also, although you have defeated me, it does not mean that you will definitely be able to see the principal. Shui Miao turned around as he spoke. His eyes looked at the stone platforms around the statue that was floating outside the battleground. A stern expression once again surged into his eyes. If you want to see the principal, you must ascend these stone platforms. When you reach the top, you will naturally be able to see him.
However, if you cannot, I'm afraid that you will have to come back another day.
Xiao Yan turned his eyes and looked over when he heard this.
After a careful inspection, he finally understood that these stone platforms were the key to whether he would be able to see Hai Machin.
Xiao Yan leaped and appeared in front of the stone statue in a flash. The energy light barrier that covered the entire battleground naturally disappeared when Shui Miao announced that he had admitted defeat. Shui Miao swiftly followed behind Xiao Yan. This caused Xiao Yan to be slightly surprised.
The latter parted his mouth and said, "Don't worry.
The reason why I am able to be personally received by the principal is because I once stepped onto the 54th step of this stone platform with the cultivation of a 5-star Do D a couple of years ago. Now that a couple of years have passed, my cultivation is no longer what it was back then. I also wish to see how many steps I can step onto now."
Xiao Yan nodded with a sudden understanding after hearing the latter's words.
No wonder this fellow was able to be personally received by Hai Machin. This was the reason behind it. However, this was also good. The competition between the two of them had piqued his interest. Xiao Yan turned his eyes and looked at the stone platforms that were connected to each other in the sky. His heart involuntarily recalled the matter before he had met Gu Yu. At that time, he had also encountered a similar situation. However, the difference was that the person he had to face was no longer Gu Yu. Hai Machin. I am coming. Dope a Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Dope a Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Chapter 1025. Stomp. Xiao Yan's feet heavily stomped on the ground. His body suddenly shot upward. In the blink of an eye, he had already stepped onto the first stone platform. When Xiao Yan stepped onto the stone platform, an invisible pressure suddenly descended from above his head. At the same time, the chain that was connected to the second stone platform was wrapped by a cream-white, gentle glow that swiftly spread upward. However, before the pressure above Xiao Yan's head descended, Xiao Yan's legs once again exerted force and his body shot out. Soon, he reached the second and third stone platforms and rushed to the highest point of the stone platforms without stopping. Behind him, Shui Miao panted for a moment before following close behind, unwilling to be outdone. These two people, one in front and one behind, were equally matched in terms of speed. Within a short moment, they had already ascended to the top 30 stone platforms. Xiao Yan, on the other hand, was still 3 steps ahead of Shui Miao. In comparison, Xiao Yan was not worried. Just relying on speed alone was useless if one wanted to climb this 100-step stone platform. Even though Xiao Yan's physical body was strong, the pressure on the stone platform would become increasingly frightening the higher he climbed. It was impossible for him to endure until the end by relying on his physical body's strength.
Back then, he had relied on a willpower that exceeded an ordinary person in order to finally ascend to the 54th step.
Even now, Shui Miao was not completely confident that he could reach the 90th step, let alone the 100th step. Although Xiao Yan's battle strength was extraordinary and his strength could not be underestimated, in the previous battle, Shui Miao admitted that he could not have defeated him so easily if Xiao Yan had not relied on his ghostly speed and cunning. On this stone platform, one could not rely on scheming to reach the peak. Everything still depended on one's strength. The two of them, one at the front and one at the back, gradually showed a difference in their speed after reaching the 50th stone platform. At the 50th step, Shui Miao could clearly feel some pressure. At different heights, the pressure he faced was different. He could no longer be as calm as before. On the other hand, after reaching the 50th step, Xiao Yan did not slow down at all. When Shui Miao reached the 50th step, the former was only approaching the 60th stone platform. Knowing the consequences of reaching the 67th step, Xiao Yan heaved a sigh of relief. Shui Miao felt extremely surprised in his heart when he saw this scene. It was unexpected that the gap between him and Xiao Yan had become so obvious at this moment. At the same time, Shui Miao's heart also felt an unwillingness. All he could do was to use all his strength. After inhaling a deep breath of air, his body once again shot out explosively. He chased after Xiao Yan without stopping. The gap between the two of them swiftly shrunk. By the time they reached the 70th level, the distance between Xiao Yan and Shui Miao was merely separated by a stone platform. 72, 73, 74. However, by the time Shui Miao saw Xiao Yan ascend the 77th stone platform, he already felt that his strength was lacking. His entire body was drenched in perspiration. The long hair that was tied behind his back was also in a mess. His breathing was long and rough. The dou qi within his body was somewhat unable to keep up, perhaps due to the exhaustion from the battle earlier. Damn it! I can't stop here. I definitely can't. After cursing in his heart, Shui Miao slowly straightened his body. He gathered all the strength in his body and his feet heavily stepped on the edge of the stone platform. He used all his strength to charge forward once again. Unfortunately, by the time Shui Miao reached the 80th step with all his strength and was about to reach the 81st step, his body finally lost all its strength. His center of gravity was no longer under his control. He completely lost all his strength in the air as he charged toward the 81st step. His body immediately fell down uncontrollably. The appearance of this scene caused the expressions of the students in the arena below to change drastically. The surrounding instructors also hurriedly moved and arrived below the statue, preparing to catch the falling Shui Miao. However,
It was also at this moment that the falling Shui Miao was suddenly grabbed by a hand and forcefully lifted up. Soon after, his body swiftly charged up to the 83rd level under the guidance of this force. When he focused his gaze, he realized that Xiao Yan had brought him here.
Why did you? I can't just watch you fall. Didn't you say that you want to defeat me? Then let's talk after we reach the 100th step.
Before the words from Shui Miao's mouth sounded, Xiao Yan smiled and interrupted him with a sentence. Shui Miao raised his head in surprise, only to see that the latter's face was covered in perspiration. In his heart, he knew that the current Xiao Yan did not have much strength left.
Don't tell me that you want to bring me up? You don't have much strength left.
Hee, you can dream on. Even if I bring you up, I'm afraid that you won't be willing. With a teasing smile, Xiao Yan randomly tossed a jade bottle to Shui Miao. There were a few rank 4 medicinal pills within it.
Use this to recover your do qi first. As for me, I'll be going up first. After speaking, Xiao Yan ignored Shui Miao.
A thought passed through his mind and a vast and mighty spiritual strength immediately swept out from between his brows. At the same time, the remaining do qi in his body was completely agglomerated without any hesitation. Subsequently, he once again shot high into the air with a bang in front of Shui Miao's shocked eyes. For rank 4 spiritual strength. Don't tell me that he is. Thinking of a certain possibility, the expression on Shui Miao's face once again became dull. He really did not dare to imagine that Xiao Yan actually had such an identity. If that was really the case, it was likely that he would be completely defeated in this battle. At the same time, Xiao Yan's body once again shot up explosively, heading straight for the top of the statue. With the support of his spiritual strength, the exhaustion from earlier was temporarily made up for. Additionally, his remaining do qi and physical strength were completely unleashed. At this moment, Xiao Yan was like a wild beast that had gone crazy. His actions were wild as he charged straight up into the clouds. Very quickly, Xiao Yan had already arrived at the 90th level of the stone platform. He was only 10 steps away from the top of the statue. A stern expression surfaced in Xiao Yan's eyes as he eyed the cloud layer not far above his head. All the strength in his body was gathered on his legs. His body began to charge upward in an even crazier manner. He did not hold back at all. With the speed of 1 step at a time, Xiao Yan only took 1 step at a time on each stone platform. In the span of a few breaths, his body had already appeared on the 99th stone platform. At this moment, Xiao Yan had already seen the pavilion at the top of the statue. There were 2 figures standing side by side there. One of them was Hai Mochen. At the same time, this pavilion was also the last stone platform. Ta! Chapter 1026. Above the clouds, there was a pavilion. At this moment, 3 figures were sitting within it. Xiao Yan glanced at Hai Mochen, who was in front of him. His heart involuntarily felt a little surprised. Hai Mochen in front of him looked exactly the same as Gu Yu or the 2 Shi ancient god. The only difference was the color of their hair. Hai Mochen's hair was ocean blue. Other than that, there was no other difference. Xiao Yan involuntarily thought of the other person other than Hai Mochen when he thought about how these 2 people looked the same, Yi Honglian. Back then, Gu Yu had once told him that Yi Honglian was a woman with a fiery temper. Now that he thought about it, just what kind of scene would it be if her appearance was the same as the 2 of them? Xiao Yan quietly quivered in his heart when he thought of this. He did not dare to continue thinking about it. Haha, little fellow, the speed of your growth has far exceeded my expectations. Originally, I thought that you would at the very most be a 5-star Do D by the time you arrived at my place. It is unexpected that your cultivation has already reached the advanced 7-star Do D class. Moreover, from the looks of the battle earlier, it seems that you still have many trump cards that you have yet to use. Hai Mochen wore an amiable smile as he looked at Xiao Yan in front of him. He repeatedly nodded. After seeing Xiao Yan's performance today, he was certain that it was the latter. Xiao Yan smiled awkwardly when he heard Hai Mochen's words. The former's eyes were extremely sharp. Although he had already seen the needle form from the Great Void Dao, he still did not believe that it was his only trump card. It must be said that it was really impossible to hide anything in front of these fellows. Haha, I say, you were full of praise when you were watching the show earlier. Why have you become quiet now that you have seen him? At this moment, Hai Mochen turned his eyes to the black-robed old man on the other side.
His face was filled with ridicule as he teased. Xiao Yan also turned his eyes over after hearing this.
Heh, you old geezer. This old man didn't say anything because I wanted to give you face and let you talk with this brat a little longer. You're really good, forcing this old man to speak.
Hearing Hai Machen's words, the black-robed old man also curled his lips. Then, he looked at Xiao Yan with a strange smile. His gaze constantly sized him up, as if he was looking at some kind of treasure. Heh, little guy, your physique is pretty good. You seem to have done some research on physical strength from your battle just now. You can even materialize your physical strength.
Heh, it's impossible for an ordinary person to achieve such a feat without some years of experience.
Hee, Xiao Yan. This old fellow is usually quite humble.
For him to say such words to you, it can be considered as a very high evaluation of you.
Hai Machen giggled.
The words that came out of his mouth were true.
The black-robed old man also chuckled and said, Anyway, the brat below doesn't have this ability. Let me praise him. Hearing this, Xiao Yan did not dare to neglect. He knew that the person who could sit at the same table as Hai Machen was definitely extraordinary.
To be able to receive the praise of the latter, it was naturally an honor.
He immediately stood up and bowed. Haha, forget about those complicated formalities. It's no big deal.
It's just a one-sided thing,
the black-robed old man said in an unconcerned manner. A gentle smile appeared on his fierce-looking face. Immediately after, he began to laugh and scold Hai Machen. I say, old man, you keep calling me old fellow. If this brat doesn't know, he would think that this old man doesn't have a name. Can't you introduce me? Hai Machen laughed again when he heard this. Xiao Yan, who was at the side, grinned. Facing these two, he really did not dare to relax. This old fellow is the ancestor of the Sea Shark clan. At the same time, he is also the one and only strongest person in the sea. His name is Hai Zhantian. You can call him Old Thief Hai or Old Thing. Hai Machen teased with a smile. Hai Zhantian, on the other hand, glared at the latter with an unhappy face. What he got in return was a shameless and playful expression. However, Xiao Yan, who heard Hai Machen's words at this moment, was greatly shocked in his heart. He could naturally hear that Hai Machen's words did not contain any intention of joking. The ancestor of the Sea Shark clan. Just this sentence alone was enough to shock Xiao Yan. The Sea Shark clan was one of the 3 strongest factions in the North Sea. Who would have thought that their ancestor would actually have such a relationship with Hai Machen? Moreover, what shocked Xiao Yan the most was the phrase, the strongest person in the sea. Just this sentence alone already contained boundless weight. The 2 great magical beast clans in the North Sea had reproduced for at least several thousand years. Their foundations were enormous and were definitely especially terrifying. There was no lack of extremely powerful existences within them. Xiao Yan did not doubt that there were probably quite a few powerhouses on the level of origin kings and origin emperors in the sea. The title of the strongest person was not something that just anyone could bear. At the very least, Xiao Yan suspected that Hai Zhantian's strength was at least at the origin ancestor realm in order to be worthy of this title. Origin ancestor. Just thinking about this realm made Xiao Yan's heart burn with passion. However, he did not know how long he would have to wait for that day to arrive. Immediately, Xiao Yan hurriedly stood up. He cupped his hands together and bowed to Hai Zhantian. He respectfully said, Junior Xiao Yan greets Senior Hai Zhantian. Hai Zhantian's expression immediately changed when he heard this. He chuckled at Xiao Yan and said, Not bad, kid. Haha, little fellow, you're not bad. How about this? If you're willing, you don't have to call me senior. Just take me as your master and call me master in the future. I guarantee that as long as you're in the North Sea, no one will dare to touch you. If this old fellow in front of you wants to touch you, feel free to fight back. I'll back you up. How about it? Although he clearly knew that Hai Zhantian was joking, Xiao Yan did not dare to be negligent as he cupped his fists and apologized. On the other hand, Hai Machen joked with Hai Zhantian for a while longer before he put away the joking expression on his face. His expression became serious once more as he turned his gaze towards Xiao Yan and said in a serious tone, Xiao Yan, I've talked about this guy. Now, I feel that it's time for me to talk to you about the matters between us. Hearing this, the expression on Xiao Yan's face immediately became serious. He naturally knew what Hai Machen was referring to. He nodded his head gently and said, That's right. Senior, Please feel free to speak your mind.
To the side, Xianxia immediately fell silent when he saw the two act this way. In order not to disturb the two, he stood up and walked out of the pavilion to enjoy the scenery in the distance. Chapter 10:27. Xiao Yan, you should already be aware of my identity, right? Xiao Yan and Hai Mochen were seated opposite each other in the pavilion. Xianxia was seated alone a short distance away. He was looking at the distant sky in a bored manner. Occasionally, he would lower his eyebrows and think. It seemed as though he was worried about something. Yes, Guyu once told me that your actual body is the Sea Heart Flame, which is ranked 15th on the Heavenly Flame ranking. Xiao Yan nodded and replied without any hesitation. A melancholy involuntarily flashed across Hai Mochen's weathered eyes when he heard Xiao Yan mention Guyu. Although they had not met for 1,000 years, they still appreciated each other. Now that Guyu had passed away, Hai Mochen was a little reluctant to part with him. Fortunately, he had met Xiao Yan. This also meant that the day they would meet again was not far away. That's right, my actual body is the Sea Heart Flame. Although my ranking on the Heavenly Flame ranking is lower than that old fellow, you should not underestimate me. This junior does not dare.
Hai Mochen teased.
Xiao Yan hurriedly cupped his hands together. The latter smiled upon seeing this and immediately said, Little fellow, I came here to visit you. Other than my actual body, the Sea Heart Flame, you have also come to look for me this time around, right? Hai Mochen smiled as he extended his hand. A blue flame immediately rose from his palm and swiftly transformed into a remnant scroll. When Xiao Yan focused his attention on it, a fiery hot glint immediately surged in his eyes. This is the flame art. This remnant scroll was none other than a remnant of the flame art. Back then, Guyu had told Xiao Yan that the other half of the flame art was in the hands of 5 people. Currently, the portion in Guyu's hands had already been obtained by Xiao Yan. Other than Hai Mochen, Xiao Yan knew that only Yi Honglian possessed the remaining portion. As for the other two, Xiao Yan did not even know their identities. It would be a long time before he could obtain them. Of course, it was still too early to talk about these things. What was important was the portion of the flame art that Hai Mochen currently possessed. If he could obtain it, Xiao Yan's flame art would naturally become more complete. At that time, the level of his chi method would naturally not be affected after he swallowed the heavenly flame. Haha, more accurately speaking, this is only a portion of the flame art. You have already refined the portion in Guyu's hands. Come to think of it, the portion in my hands is what you need the most now. Hai Mochen smiled as he looked at the fiery hot face of Xiao Yan in front of him. At the same time he spat out the words from his mouth. He flicked his finger. A ray of light immediately shot between Xiao Yan's brows. I will temporarily place this in your body. You can refine it yourself when you have the time. Xiao Yan's heart was suddenly startled when he sensed the cluster of energy that suddenly surged into his mind. However, he quickly calmed down and nodded with a heart filled with wild joy. It was a long while later before he gradually withdrew his excitement. Hai Mochen was not the least bit anxious about this. He continued to smile as he looked at the young man in front of him. There was some anticipation deep within his eyes. Can you tell me roughly what level your flame mantra has reached? Hearing Hai Mochen's question, Xiao Yan frowned slightly. He pondered for a moment before replying. It should be equivalent to a human rank high-level chi method. Only human rank high level, huh? This will not be of much help to your current cultivation. However, you have still grown to such an extent. I must say that your cultivation talent is really frightening. Hai Mochen frowned. While he was a little surprised by Xiao Yan's chi method level, he could not help but exclaim. Xiao Yan smiled in a non-committal manner when he heard this. He cupped his hands together and said, You're too kind. Senior, you flatter me. This junior was only able to successfully break through due to some luck. Even if it's luck, not everyone will have your luck. You must remember that from a certain point of view, luck itself is also a part of strength. On this continent, there are many people who rely on luck. However, there are very few who can truly grasp it. However, since you can grasp this luck, it is already a part of your strength. However, you must also remember that you can't rely on luck for everything. In the end, you still need to be down to earth in order to pursue strength. I believe that you should be very clear about this point. Xiao Yan nodded solemnly when he heard this.
Chen slowly stood up and looked back at the large island below the clouds. His heart was filled with emotions. Beihai College. Back then, it was just a spur of the moment. I did not expect it to be established for 1,000 years. Now, it is finally time for me to leave. Xiao Yan by the side walked forward.
He glanced at the academy below and opened his mouth. However, he did not know what to say.
Hee, you don't need to have any psychological burden. My existence was originally to wait for your arrival. This is where my duty lies. Besides, even if I leave, this college will still be here. Everything here will still be here. It's just that I won't be here anymore. Patting Xiao Yan's shoulder, Chen had a relaxed look on his face. He looked like he had thrown away a huge burden, but there was also a hint of reluctance. After all, this was the college that he had built with his own hands. No matter what he said, there would still be reluctance in his heart. Humans were not plants and could not be emotionless. Moreover, this college had accompanied him for 1,000 years. Old man, I plan to leave here. What about you? Turning his head, Chen's gaze landed on Xianxia again as he spoke with a carefree smile. Of course I'm going back. Don't tell me that I'm going to stay behind and help you guard this college. Xianxia's face was unconcerned as he curled his lips. Seeing this, Chen smiled. Changing the topic, he asked, how is your granddaughter?
If she comes out from the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, her cultivation should have reached a 9-star DoD.
That's for sure. That little girl's cultivation talent is very good. However, just as Xianxia finished laughing, he couldn't help but frown. With a thought, the storage ring on his finger suddenly flashed with a faint light. Then, a dark blue bead the size of a palm appeared in his palm. The moment this bead entered his hand, Xianxia did not hesitate to crush it. At the same time, a light screen quickly formed in the empty space in front of him. The scene that appeared on the screen was a huge whirlpool at the bottom of the sea. At this moment, this whirlpool was shaking intensely under the gazes of the three people. It could be clearly seen that waves of water uncontrollably flowed toward the center of the whirlpool, as though they were trying to fill it up. This is a message from my sea shark clan. The empty realm at the bottom of the sea. Damn it, something has indeed happened there. The moment he saw this scene in front of him, Xianxia's expression changed drastically. He did not expect that the thing that he was worried about in his heart would actually happen. Where is Li Kong? Call that old man out. Recovering, Xianxia immediately stared at Chen and cried out in a hurried voice. There's no choice. Li Kong left the academy half a year ago and has not returned until now. Seeing the message that appeared on the light screen, Chen also frowned. He knew how serious this matter was. However, due to the current situation, he could only helplessly shake his head. He also did not expect that something would happen to the empty realm at the bottom of the sea at this moment. Where are the others? Are there no other array masters in the academy? Xianxia was a little anxious. There were no array masters in the Sea Clan, and this matter could only be completed by array masters. Therefore, he could only place all his hopes on Beihai College. It's useless. Although there are array masters in the academy, there are no array masters above rank 5. The empty realm at the bottom of the sea is a natural array. Ordinary array masters are useless. We need to find a rank 5 array master at the very least. Damn it! In this vast sea, where are we going to find a rank 5 array master? Xianxia's heart immediately became furious when he heard Chen's words. He had yet to use any strength when the empty space around him suddenly emitted a bang and collapsed. This scene caused Xiao Yan's heart to jump when he saw it. Xianxia's strength could really be described as frightening. However, it was also at this moment that the empty space beside Xiao Yan suddenly became distorted. Soon after, a somewhat illusionary human figure slowly appeared in front of the three of them. At the same time, a smile that was filled with confidence was spat out. A rank 5 array master? If that's the case, then there's no need to trouble ourselves to find one. Chapter 1028. In the pavilion above the clouds, the two old men looked at the smiling Xianxia beside Xiao Yan in surprise. They were both shocked and overjoyed. With their strength, they naturally knew of Xianxia's existence long ago, but they never expected him to be a rank 5 array master. This was truly a glimmer of hope at one's darkest hour. Of course, Xiao Yan was also surprised by this. He did not expect Xiao Xian to take the initiative to come forward. However, when he saw the expression on Hai Zhantian's face, he more or less understood what was going on. From Hai Zhantian's expression, he could tell that the undersea void realm seemed to be very important to him. If he could use this to make Hai Zhantian have a good impression of them, it would undoubtedly be of great benefit to Xiao Yan. Hai Zhantian was the strongest person in the Sea clan. It could be said that he alone could influence the entire Sea clan. If he could gain his favor, it would be akin to gaining the closeness of the entire Sea clan. Such a good thing was something that ordinary people could only wish for. The undersea void realm was a natural array formation located in the depths of the North Sea. There was a hidden universe within the array formation, and there was a self-contained space that had been formed over countless years. The environment of the undersea void realm was basically the same as the continent outside the North Sea. There were also mountains and rivers, as well as countless magical beasts. Hence, it had become a training ground for the younger generation of the Sea clan. The undersea void realm was not controlled by humans. It would automatically open once every 10 years, and it would remain open for half a year each time. During this half a year, the younger generation of the Sea clan would have the opportunity to compete with each other. However, due to man-made reasons, the undersea void realm would open once every 3 years for half a year. It was also because of these reasons that the natural array formation that formed the undersea void realm was gradually unable to hold on. Until the last time it opened, Hai Zhantian had already faintly sensed that the space of the undersea void realm was unstable, and that the opening of the array formation might lead to unforeseen events. Even so, this was only his personal conjecture. Hence, he did not stop the opening of the undersea void realm this time. However, he never expected that what he was most worried about would happen in the end. Once the formation that supported the void realm at the bottom of the sea collapsed, it meant that the independent space within it would be destroyed along with it. The younger generation of the Oceanic clan that entered it was bound to be unable to escape. Once those people died within it, it would absolutely be the most painful blow to the Oceanic clan. The result would be irreversible. Furthermore, due to the special nature of the undersea void realm, experts above the origin realm could not enter. If they forcefully interfered, it would only backfire. Therefore, the only way to save the younger generation of the Sea tribe was to find a formation master and do his best to stabilize the void realm at the bottom of the sea. This would create enough time for the younger generation of the Sea tribe to leave the void realm at the bottom of the sea. In order to do this, one would need at least a rank 5 array master. However, due to the departure of the only advanced array master in Beihai College, Li Kong, there was no help in the undersea void realm. If other array masters could not be found, then the younger generation of the Sea clan in the undersea void realm would no longer have a chance to survive. All of these were the reasons why Hai Machin and Hai Zhantian were so anxious. However, what they did not expect was that Xiao Yan, who was by their side at this moment, would actually become their life-saving straw during this kind of crisis. Xiao Xian's appearance instantly broke the deadlock of certain death. The appearance of a Tier 5 array master turned the seemingly irreversible situation around. The undersea void realm was located at the border between the Sea Shark clan and the Sea Serpent clan. Hence, the undersea void realm was naturally under the jurisdiction of the two clans. It was also because of this that all the younger generation of the two clans would enter together when the undersea void realm opened. The number of people who entered the undersea void realm was as high as thousands. And these people were the future hope of the two clans. If there were no accidents, when these young people of the Sea clan had truly grown up, they would definitely become the leaders of the two clans in the future. They would lead the entire Sea clan and continue to multiply and strengthen. It could be said that these thousands of people were related to the survival of the entire Sea clan. Under Hai Zhantian's lead, the group of 4 quickly left Beihai College and dived into the boundless deep sea. This time, Xiao Yan could be considered to have witnessed how terrifying Hai Zhantian was. If it were an ordinary powerhouse, it would take several months to travel. However, Hai Zhantian only used half an hour to bring the 3 of them there. This terrifying speed was simply shocking. When the group of 4 arrived here, they saw a huge energy vortex that was 1,000 feet high. It stood above the abyss at the bottom of the sea. On both sides of the vortex, there were 2 stalagmite-like stone pillars. The 2 stalagmite-like stone pillars set off each other. They shone with a faint light, which was quite mysterious. Seeing this, Xiao Yan could tell at a glance that these 2 stone pillars must be the natural formation that formed the undersea void realm. As expected of the power of heaven and earth. Such a mystical natural formation is really unheard of. On the side, Xianxia also looked at the two huge stone pillars in front of him with admiration. His eyes flashed with a bright light. If he could cultivate and comprehend the Tao of formations here, it would be a great opportunity for him. When the four of them arrived, there were already many people gathered in front of the undersea void realm. These people were the powerhouses of the two clans, and their cultivations were extremely terrifying. However, although these people were gathered here, they were all frowning with worry on their faces. They were like ants on a hot pan, not knowing what to do. The changes in the undersea void realm made these guys, who were usually unhurried about everything, feel serious for the first time. At this moment, when the members of the two sea clans saw Xianxia's group, a look of anticipation appeared on their faces. The leaders of the two clans quickly walked towards Xianxia's group with the clansmen behind them. Father, the changes in the undersea void realm, Ling-er. All right, there's no need to say any more. I already know. Xianxia furrowed his eyebrows tightly as he spoke. Then, he walked through the crowd. The people behind him did not dare to delay as they immediately followed him. Other than the middle-aged man who had addressed Xianxia as father, there was another middle-aged man with red hair who was wearing a dark red robe. Behind him, there was a group of experts from the Sea Serpent tribe. Chapter 1029. Everyone followed Xianxia and arrived in front of the underwater void realm. Behind them, Xiao Yan and Xiao Xian were led by Machin. The leaders of the two sea tribes gathered on both sides. Seeing that Machin had brought in the young-looking Xiao Yan and Xiao Xian, who was a spiritual body, their eyes were filled with suspicion. In particular, when they saw Xiao Yan's cultivation, they frowned. How could such a brat enter this place? However, the thing that caused everyone present to be shocked was that Xianxia turned around with a solemn face after Xiao Yan and Xiao Xian arrived in front of him. His old eyes were fixed on Xiao Xian, who was a spiritual body. After which, he cupped his hands to Xiao Xian in front of everyone present and solemnly said, "Brother Xianxia. Sir, I'll leave the maintenance of this formation to you." Wow! As soon as these words were spoken, the sea tribe experts behind him were in an uproar. They did not expect Xianxia to show such an attitude to a junior. Moreover, from his words, it seemed that he intended to entrust the matter of repairing the underwater void realm to him. This caused the expressions of many people present to change. In the crowd of the Sea Serpent clan, an old man in a robe also frowned. Among all the people who entered the underwater void realm, one of them was his grandson. If something happened to his grandson because of the wrong person, he would not be able to accept it. Senior High, I'm afraid it's a little inappropriate for you to do this. The underwater void realm is a natural formation, and its attributes are special. Now that the formation is in trouble, we should invite Master Li Kong of Beihai College to come. Why did you find a rank 5 formation master? Just him. Are you doubting my decision? However, before the elder could finish speaking, Xianxia abruptly turned his gaze as his ice-cold eyes instantly landed on the elder's body. A formidable aura instantly caused the elder to be so terrified that he was unable to move. Even the expressions of the other people present drastically changed. They never expected that Xianxia would actually be so furious over this matter. Immediately after, the red-haired middle-aged man who was the leader of the Sea Serpent clan hurriedly moved his feet and stood behind the old man. He then bowed to Xianxia and said, "The matter of the underwater void realm is of great importance. My clansmen are just too worried about the safety of their grandson inside. That's why they asked. They did not mean to question Senior. Please understand." What? His grandson is inside, but my granddaughter is still inside. Am I not worried if he's worried? If you don't trust the person this old man invited, you can think of a way to maintain the formation yourself. I won't stop you. But if you dare to delay and something happens to this old man's granddaughter, let alone your grandson, this old man will make your bloodline disappear from the North Sea. The furious rebuke caused everyone present to feel a chill run down their spines. Their hearts were filled with terror, especially the old man who had spoken earlier. At this moment, his entire face had turned deathly pale. Xianxia coldly snorted, and then his expression quickly turned around. He smiled at Xiao Xian before him and said, "That's right. Sir, please. As long as the people inside can come out safe and sound, Xianxia, guarantee that my Sea Shark clan will owe you a favor." Senior is too polite. This matter is reasonable for me to help. As long as I can help the people inside successfully escape danger, I will do my best. Hearing this, Xianxia cupped his fists with a solemn face. Then, he stepped forward and sat cross-legged in front of the entrance of the empty realm. Just as he was about to make a move, he turned around and looked at Xianxia again.
He said with a solemn face, then, he said with a grave expression, "Senior, this is the first time I have come into contact with the underwater void realm.
Therefore, I am not completely confident that I can repair it, so don't worry, just do it. I won't blame you. If anything happens, this old man will take responsibility for it." Xianxia naturally understood the meaning behind Xianxia's words. He immediately nodded without hesitation. Then, his sharp gaze slowly swept across the two clans behind him. Anyone who met his gaze involuntarily lowered their heads. Then, Xianxia no longer hesitated. He calmed his mind and began to mobilize all of his spiritual strength.
It turned into waves of golden light and poured into the huge energy vortex in front of him without reservation. Sure enough, after a short while, as the golden light poured in, the violent shaking of the underwater void realm gradually calmed down.
Even the seawater that was constantly pouring in was cut off. Seeing this scene, everyone's face suddenly revealed a surprised expression. The stabilization of the underwater void realm was undoubtedly the result they wanted to see the most. However, things did not seem to be that simple. In front of the crowd, Mochan and Xianxia were still frowning. They knew that the scene in front of them was only the surface. Even if the surface was calm, there must be an undercurrent under the water. The underwater void realm was a natural formation. How could it be so easy to repair it? In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. Although only 2 days had passed, Xianxia's body, which was already slightly illusory, had already become transparent, and his massive soul power was still constantly being consumed. On the other hand, no one had stepped out of the underwater void realm in front of them yet. According to the current situation, if the seabed void realm returned to stability, then the Sea Clan people would definitely escape from it quickly. However, judging from the current situation, the situation was not as smooth as they had imagined. Cough cough. At a certain moment, the illusionary Xianxia finally withdrew from his long-seated state. He coughed intensely as he slowly turned his body around. Xiao, who had been observing him from behind, hurriedly moved and stepped forward to help him up. Sensing the weak aura in Xiaoxian's body, Xiao could not help but reveal a worried expression. At the same time, all the people of the sea tribe present also looked at Xiao with anticipation. "Sir, how is the situation inside?" Xianxia suppressed the emotions in his heart and asked Xiao in a low voice. Xiao slowly shook his head when he heard that. Everyone's heart sank when they saw that. They never thought that they would fail at the last moment. Immediately, many of the people present could not help but reveal a mournful expression. If they had known this would happen, they would not have let their juniors enter the underwater void realm. Who would have thought that the training ground that they had always held in high regard would actually become their grave in the end? This really caused everyone present to feel endless regret in their hearts. "Senior, my spiritual strength is limited, and I can't completely repair the entrance of the underwater void realm. However, in my opinion, it's not like we don't have any other way." Xiaoxian's sudden words were like a willow branch that was extended to them when they were stuck in a swamp. In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on Xiaoxian again in unison with a fiery light in their eyes. Xiaoxian did not dare to delay any longer when he sensed everyone's gazes on him. After panting for a moment, he stared at Xianxia and said in a serious voice. After taking a breather, he said in a serious tone, "We must choose one person to enter the underwater void realm and use external force to open the array that seals the entrance." Chapter 10:30. The moment Xiaoxian's words sounded, the people present immediately faced each other. After a couple of breaths, a series of shouts immediately sounded. I am willing to go in. Let me open that tunnel." "Me too, I also want to go in." Faced with this situation, Xiaoxian could not help but frown.
He opened his mouth, but the words that came out of his mouth were easily drowned out by the shouts of the crowd.
"All of you shut up." Soon after, Xianxia let out a loud cry. A frightening pressure immediately descended on the heads of the people behind him. The people, who had been arguing non-stop a moment ago, instantly became quiet. Seeing this scene, Xiao and Xiao could not help but sigh in their hearts. It was really good to have strength. It was convenient to do anything, And one did not need to worry when speaking.
Instead, one needed others to listen to them.
Didn't you hear what Mr. said earlier? Only one person can be chosen to enter. Moreover, that person's cultivation must be below the origin transformation realm. Your group of old fellows is neither strong nor weak. How can you enter? Seeing that everyone had become quiet, Xianxia's expression was gloomy as he cursed. The people behind him all lowered their heads in fear.
They did not even have the courage to look at the former.
A long while later, the current tribe leaders of the Sea Serpent tribe and the Sea Shark tribe finally exchanged glances with each other. After which, they raised their heads with some hesitation and looked at Xianxia. The red-haired tribe leader of the Sea Serpent tribe was the first to speak. Elder Hai, since this is the case, why don't you choose one of the elite Do-Di from my Sea Serpent tribe who has accompanied us on this trip? These people are all members of my Sea Serpent tribe's Central Abyss mansion.
Their fighting strength is definitely among the top among those of the same level.
Since you have already helped us invite a formation master, leave the matter of opening the entrance to the Void Realm to us. As he spoke, the middle-aged man waved his hand. Immediately, 20 people swiftly passed through the crowd and arrived beside the middle-aged man. They immediately bowed to Xianxia. Turning his head, Xianxia's gaze swept over these 20 people one by one. 29-star Do-Di. This kind of group could be considered not bad. Elder Hai can choose as you wish.
These 20 people are all from my Yuan mansion. No need, not a single one of them.
However, before the middle-aged man could finish speaking, Xianxia spoke in disdain. Immediately, it was not just the middle-aged man. Even the leaders of the Sea Serpent clan behind him paled.
Although these 20 people could not be considered strong, they were definitely extremely strong existences among the Do-Di class.
It could be said that no one of the same class was a match for them. The reason for this was due to the cruel selection system of the Sea Serpent tribe.
The strength of the existences who stood out from the slaughter was something that even the younger generation of the Sea Shark tribe could not help but sigh in admiration.
However, Xianxia's words were like a heavy blow to the hearts of these people, immediately igniting their anger. Father, the vice-captain of our Sea Shark clan's Black Shark troop is also here. Why don't we let him try?
After which, the blue-robed middle-aged man beside the red-haired middle-aged man involuntarily smiled in an embarrassed manner.
He glanced at the person beside him before dryly laughing at Xianxia. The faces of the leaders of the Sea Serpent clan immediately became gloomy when these words were uttered. The reason why Xianxia said that the people from their Yuan mansion were not good was because he only trusted his own clan members. Immediately, someone involuntarily cried out loudly. Chief Hai, I heard that the vice-captain of your Black Shark troop is already an advanced 9-star Do-Di at such a young age. Since this is the case, why don't you let our two clans compete and see if the people from our Yuan mansion have the strength to enter the emptiness stage at the bottom of the sea?
If we do let our Yuan mansion... Elder Huan, I do not mean it that way. I only...
Enough. All of you shut up. I do not need any of these people. There is someone here who is more suitable than any of them. Before the words from the mouths of the two people behind him sounded, Xianxia cried out angrily with an impatient face. Immediately, the two people behind him became quiet. At the same time, Xiao Yan, who was beside Xiao Xian, involuntarily raised his eyebrows. He seemed to have already guessed who the person that Xianxia was talking about was. As expected, the latter's gaze landed on Xiao Yan soon after. The corner of his mouth involuntarily twitched. Xianxia, on the other hand, stepped forward with a face full of smiles.
Little fellow, I'll leave this matter to you.
Xiao Yan helplessly smiled bitterly when he heard this.
Since the other party had already put it in such a manner, he would feel a little apologetic if he did not step forward.
Additionally, there was also Hai Machen's relationship. It was likely that he must intervene in this matter. Since Elder has said so, this junior will naturally do his best. After hesitating for a moment, Xiao Yan nodded heavily with a solemn expression. He knew that since Xianxia had chosen him without much consideration, it meant that Xianxia had absolute confidence in him.
Now, the burden of this matter had once again landed on his shoulders.
Elder, let him go? How can we do this?
Putting aside the fact that he is not a member of our Sea clan, just his mere cultivation of a 7-star Do-Di is enough for anyone from our Yuan clan to crush him.
If we allow him to go, wouldn't we be disregarding the future of our Sea clan? Elder Hai, this matter concerns the future of our Sea clan. This matter is of great importance. This junior also hopes that you can reconsider.
Father, this. In an instant, not only the leaders of the two clans, but even the two clan heads had once again voiced their objections.
The voices of objection grew louder and louder. Xianxia's expression had once again become gloomy.
However, it was also at this moment that Xiao Yan by the side narrowed his eyes. The corner of his mouth carried a slight smile. His body flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of the 20 people from the Yuan clan.
He did not pay any attention to the reprimands from the sea species leaders behind him.
His eyes swept across the 20 people with a sharp gaze. Soon after, he smiled and said, "Since all of you are the best among the elite Do-Di, why don't we do it this way?
We will have a simple competition.
Within 3 rounds, as long as any of you can touch the corner of my clothes, I will voluntarily withdraw from the matter of the underwater void realm."
Once these faint words were emitted, not only did the 29-star Do-Di from the Yuan clan in front of him, but even the expressions of the Sea clan leaders behind him also changed.
Humph!
Arrogant human brat.
It is not up to you to intervene in the matters of our Sea clan.
There is no need for them to attack together. As long as you can receive one of my attacks, we will admit defeat.
An advanced 9-star Do-Di stepped out from among the 20 people from the Yuan clan with a ferocious expression.
His extremely cold voice also spread. Chapter 1031. As these words spread, the crowd behind immediately quietened down. Numerous gazes that were filled with ridicule and disdain swept back and forth between Xiao Yan and the person from the Yuan mansion. On the other hand, Hai Zhantian and Hai Mochen, after hearing the conversation between the two, one had a cold expression while the other had a mocking expression.
"Father, what do you think?" Seeing the two people in the arena who had drawn their swords in the blink of an eye, the clan leader of the Sea Shark clan involuntarily turned his gaze to Hai Zhantian. However, when he saw the cold expression on Hai Zhantian's face, the words that had reached his mouth were forcefully swallowed back down.
"All right, let's end this quickly." Xiao Yan rubbed his eyebrows and replied indifferently. Immediately, his right hand slowly clenched into a fist.
A powerful force gathered in his palm.
The remaining people from the Yuan mansion behind the 9-star Do-Di exchanged glances with each other. Immediately, they took the initiative to take a few steps back, leaving the space in front of them for the two of them. Numerous gazes revealed an expression of disdain when they looked at Xiao Yan. One could imagine the result of a 7-star Do-Di facing a 9-star Do-Di, even if one used one's heel. Humph humph. He actually dares to accept it. This brat is really seeking death. Xue Kuei once killed 10 Do-Di with his own strength. This brat is actually stupid enough to agree to be his opponent. I'm afraid that he would be crippled with just one punch from Xue Kuei. Ha 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 ha. The group of people from the Yuan mansion crossed their arms as they looked at the two people in front of them. Their words were filled with cold laughter. Although the two of them had yet to attack, they seemed to have already seen Xiao Yan's miserable and painful appearance when he was defeated. Of course, not everyone had the same thoughts. At the very least, the clan leaders of the two large sea clans involuntarily carried some doubt when they looked at Xiao Yan. A person who was thought so highly of by Hai Zhantian dared to take the initiative to attack, and dared to say such unruly words in the face of 29-star Do-Di. This kind of person was either a fool or someone who had absolute confidence in his own strength. And the Xiao Yan in front of him was obviously not a fool. Although they had already thought of this point in their hearts, these two clan heads still involuntarily held some doubt in their hearts. After all, even from their point of view, the gap between Xiao Yan and this 9-star Do-Di was really too great. No matter how they looked at it, it was impossible for Xiao Yan to win. Humph, kid, I admire your courage. But unfortunately, many things can't be done with courage alone. Xue Kuei sneered as he looked at Xiao Yan with a ferocious expression. The Do-Chi in his body began to circulate and flow into the various meridians in his body. You really talk a lot of nonsense. Xiao Yan's cold voice followed just as the words were spat out from Xue Kuei's mouth. Almost at the same time, he stomped his foot heavily and his body immediately charged forward. The short-distance charge allowed Xiao Yan to appear in front of Xue Kuei the instant he moved. Xue Kuei's expression did not change in the face of Xiao Yan's sudden attack. His feet took half a step back. At the same time, his large fist was abruptly raised. Do-Chi surged and covered his entire arm in the blink of an eye. The temporary Do-Chi turned into a layer of energy crystals that violently collided with Xiao Yan's fist. Die! A loud roar rang out. Almost at the same time, the fists of the two men collided with each other. Following the muffled sound of the collision, an invisible energy ripple immediately swept out. Some of the people nearby subconsciously squinted their eyes. Only after that did they focus their eyes again. Their eyes immediately revealed expressions of surprise. An instant after the two fists collided, the surging dou qi that was agglomerated in Xue Kuei's palm immediately poured out. The powerful strength was like a volcanic eruption as it violently struck Xiao Yan's fist. The frightening strength caused the space around the two of them to instantly shatter. Wild and violent energy ripples once again swept outwards. The extremely powerful force caused even the people from the Yuan mansion behind Xue Kuei to involuntarily become serious when they felt it. They believed that no one below the origin transformation realm would be able to block such a ferocious punch, let alone Xiao Yan, who was only a 7-star Dou Di. However, reality once again overturned their guesses in their hearts. The next scene that appeared in front of them made everyone present immediately dumbfounded. Regardless of how ferocious this attack of Xue Kuei was, it was completely blocked by a layer of substance-like golden light when it landed on Xiao Yan's fist. Xiao Yan's body still did not move even a little. The wild storm-like attacks in front of him appeared like a gentle breeze when they landed on his body. They did not cause any ripples. What? How is this possible? Xue Kuei's heart was immediately shocked when he saw this scene. The expression on his face instantly changed drastically. By the time he recovered and looked at Xiao Yan, the latter's statue-like unmoving body finally trembled slightly. Only at this moment did the power on Xiao Yan's arm completely erupt. The extremely powerful force was like a herd of crazy bulls that charged around in an instant. The layer of energy crystal that covered Xue Kuei's entire arm was quickly filled with visible cracks. Immediately after, the moment the energy crystal completely shattered, Xue Kuei's entire arm also uncontrollably twisted. At the same time his face, which had been filled with malevolence a moment ago, was also twisted. All the bones in his entire arm had already been broken. The thick muscles in his arm appeared to be twisted and tightened as though they were spasming. His face was flushed red. Xiao Yan's punch had basically completely crippled his arm. With his current condition, it was likely that it would be very difficult for him to recover from this injury without a few months' time after he returned. Xue Kuei appeared to be unable to withstand a single blow from the two forces that had erupted one after another. It even caused one to involuntarily wonder if he had really used his full strength. For the dignity of the Sea clan, Xue Kuei would naturally not hold back when he attacked. This punch of his was something that even an expert of the same level would not dare to underestimate. However, when faced with Xiao Yan, one could only say that it was not that Xue Kuei was too weak. Instead, it was that the Xiao Yan he was facing was really too strong. He was so strong that he did not have any room to resist. The unstoppable battle caused everyone in front of Xiao Yan to be shocked. Even the expressions on the faces of the clan heads of the two large sea clans were extremely interesting. They did not dare to imagine that Xue Kuei, who was a 9-star Dou Di, would actually be defeated in the hands of a 7-star Dou Di. Moreover, he had been defeated in such a straightforward manner. This was really unbelievable. Was this kind of strength really something that a 7-star Dou Di could unleash? Xiao Yan's punch had defeated Xue Kuei, who was a 9-star Dou Di. At the same time, it was like a ruthless slap to the faces of the leaders of the Sea clan behind him. At this moment, their old faces had become ashen. The emotions in their hearts were turbulent. Everyone looked at each other and realized that everyone's eyes were filled with a rich shock. This brat, how could he? He is clearly just a 7-star Dou Di. Damn it, he injured Xue Kuei. Let's attack together and make this brat pay the price. As for the remaining 19 people from the Yuan mansion, their faces were filled with disbelief. At the same time, there was even more anger on their faces. With a stern cry, the bodies of the 19 people shook. A powerful aura immediately surged out from their bodies as they attempted to attack Xiao Yan again. Enough. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. This is the method that you chose. A loss is a loss. Now, the most important thing is the matter of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. You are actually fighting over such a matter. Do you want others to see that the Yuan mansion that my Sea Serpent clan has nurtured is such a group of unruly people? However, just as the remaining 19 people from the Yuan mansion were about to attack, the red-haired middle-aged man, who was the clan leader, finally berated them with a gloomy face. Immediately, everyone, including the clan members behind him, quieted down. The dignity of a clan leader was vividly displayed at this moment. Subsequently, the red-haired middle-aged man looked at Xiao Yan again. His expression changed, and he immediately revealed a kind smile. "Little brother, I hope you don't take the matter of the empty realm to heart.
If possible, we still hope that you can handle the matter of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea."
As soon as these words left his mouth, everyone present knew that the Sea Serpent clan had declared defeat. Immediately after, the clan leader of the Sea Shark clan also stepped forward and cupped his fists to Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan naturally did not dare to neglect these two people. He gently shook, and after shaking off Xue Kuei, who was in front of him, he bowed to the two and said, "You are both very polite." "Seniors, you're too polite. Since I've already promised senior high, I'll naturally do my best. As for what happened just now, I didn't take it to heart. Please rest assured." Hearing this, the two people secretly heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. "Humph, Sky-devouring dragon, control your clan members well. Let them think clearly about their status.
If it were not for the matter of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, I would have already killed most of the idiots behind you.
If this old man doesn't come out, have you all forgotten who I am?" At this moment, Hai Zhantian once again stepped forward and arrived beside Xiao Yan. His extremely cold gaze swept over everyone in front of him. Finally, it returned to the two people in front of him.
The words that were spat out from his mouth caused the hearts of everyone present to tremble.
They did not doubt the truth of Hai Zhantian's words. If it was in the past, it was likely that Hai Zhantian would have already become furious and used his blood blade to intimidate everyone. However, after so many years, his temper had become much more restrained. However, this did not mean that he would allow these people to do whatever they wanted. After this matter was over, Hai Zhantian would probably make fun of some of them. Chapter 1032. Xiao Yan, I will temporarily stabilize the space of the underwater void realm. You just have to take advantage of this time to enter the entrance of the underwater void realm and shatter the formations that seal the entrance. This way, the people inside can leave the underwater void realm. Xiao Xian, whose body was faint and ethereal beside Xiao Yan, spoke in a faint voice. The latter gently nodded. If it was only like this, it would not be too difficult. Ancestor, are you okay? Xiao Yan turned his head. He looked at the ethereal Xiao Xian in front of him, and involuntarily asked in a worried manner. Haha, I just lost some soul power. I just need to rest for a while to recover. What's important now is the underwater void realm. You should go in quickly before anything happens. Okay. Seeing Xiao Xian like this, Xiao Yan didn't say anything else and nodded heavily. His figure flashed slightly, and in the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of the entrance of the underwater void realm. Xiao Yan, please. Before Xiao Yan entered the underwater void realm, Hai Zhantian once again cupped his fists at Xiao Yan. The latter also nodded with a serious face, and with a twist of his body, he turned around and entered the underwater void realm. In the outside world, when everyone saw Xiao Yan enter the underwater void realm, their hearts were in their mouths. There was both anticipation and worry in their eyes. Xiao Yan's success or failure was related to the future fate of the entire Sea Clan. How could the rulers of the Sea Clan not be nervous? At this moment, the only one who could be at ease was probably Hai Machin. Perhaps it was because of the subtle connection between the two of them that made Hai Machin have absolute confidence in Xiao Yan. Even Xiao Xian didn't have that. At least, he couldn't help but worry about Xiao Yan's safety. When Xiao Yan entered the underwater virtual realm, the world in front of him was suddenly filled with white light. The dazzling light made Xiao Yan unable to help but close his eyes. He raised his hand to cover the light in front of him. It was not until a long time later that he gradually adapted to it. When Xiao Yan opened his eyes, the white light in front of him gradually dimmed, and his vision became clear. The blue flowing light was like flowing water as it surged into the depths of the enormous energy tunnel that was hundreds of feet in diameter. The azure light illuminated the entire tunnel until it was bright. Xiao Yan's gaze looked into the distance. The end of the tunnel was the destination of his trip to the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan moved and quickly flew towards the depths of the tunnel. Half an hour later, Xiao Yan's flying figure slowly came to a stop. A huge formation had appeared in front of him. It stood in the middle of the tunnel and blocked Xiao Yan's path. This was the problem Xiao Yan needed to solve on this trip. A powerful energy aura spread out from the formation. The mysterious runes flickered with a bright blue light. The solid formation looked as clear and bright as crystal, giving off an indestructible feeling. Approaching it, Xiaoyan slowly extended his hand. Do Qi gathered in his palm, and then he carefully pressed it against the formation in front of him. Hum hum hum. The moment Xiaoyan's hand was placed on the formation, the energy contained within the formation immediately agglomerated under Xiaoyan's hand. Immediately, one could hear a low and deep bang sound. Xiaoyan's hand was sent flying by the energy. At the same time, Xiaoyan's feet also subconsciously took half a step back. Raising his eyes, Xiaoyan looked at the formation in front of him with surprise. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The virtual realm fruit at the bottom of the sea was indeed formed by the power of the world. The energy contained in it was much more powerful than an ordinary formation. However, even so, it didn't mean that Xiaoyan couldn't break it. Force Elephant Tactic. With a low shout in his heart, the enormous power hidden in his muscles suddenly erupted. The moment his right fist clenched tightly, the muscles on his entire arm bulged high. With a raise and a fall of his arm, the wind from his fist whistled. Immediately after, the vast and mighty power was like a flash flood as it poured out in torrents, fiercely bombarding the array in front of him. Boom! Accompanied by a loud sound, the entire formation shook violently. Circles of energy ripples surged out from the formation. Unfortunately, although Xiaoyan's attack was powerful, it didn't seem to cause any real damage to the formation. In this regard, Xiaoyan didn't show any surprise on his face. After all, this was the power of the world. If it was so easy to break, it would be too inferior. One punch wasn't enough. In the blink of an eye, Xiaoyan punched again. This time, it wasn't any weaker than the previous punch. The place where the ripples were stirred up a moment ago surged again. At the same time, Xiaoyan's powerful bombardment fell again like continuous raindrops. Boom 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 boom. After dozens of consecutive punches, the entire formation began to shake. In the end, the formation even caved in at the place where Xiaoyan's fist landed. Finally, Xiaoyan relied on his powerful physical strength to forcefully break the formation. After breaking the formation, Xiaoyan finally sighed in relief. With his strength, even a 9-star Do-D wouldn't be able to endure his continuous attacks. However, this formation was actually able to endure for such a long time. This was enough to show how powerful this formation was. However, just as Xiaoyan was panting and relaxing in his heart, Xiaoyan discovered that there was actually another formation quietly standing not far from this formation after the formation was shattered. Seeing this scene, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth involuntarily twitched. He was stunned in his heart. Xiao Xian only told him that he had to break the formation inside in order to save the people and leave. However, he didn't tell him how many such formations there were. Was it 1 or 2, 10 or 100? Or even more? If that was the case, regardless of how great Xiaoyan's ability was, he wouldn't be able to save the people. Xiaoyan involuntarily cursed in his heart when he thought of this. It was a long while later before he withdrew his thoughts. His body flashed and arrived in front of the next formation. Since Xiao Xian allowed him to enter without worry, it was likely that there wouldn't be much of a problem with the formations here. After all, if there were too many of them, how could Xiao Xian, who was clearly aware of the strength of this formation, not inform Xiaoyan beforehand? Soon after, another round of wild bombardment began. In order to reduce the time and prevent any other unforeseen events from occurring, Xiaoyan's attacks this time around had become much sharper and more powerful. With merely over 10 fierce punches, he forcefully shattered the second formation. As expected, a third formation appeared soon after. This time around, Xiaoyan did not hesitate much. He used a powerful Do skill to suppress the formation the moment he attacked. With merely 3 feet of strength, he forcefully shattered the formation. However, soon after the next formation appeared. Only when the 7th formation was broken did Xiaoyan, who was already feeling a little impatient in his heart, hear the noisy cries from the other end of the tunnel. Chapter 1033. Hearing the clear noise that was transmitted to his ears, Xiaoyan's gaze slowly descended and fixed on the formation in front of him. Through this sound, Xiaoyan could basically determine that those people were definitely not far behind this formation. From the looks of it, the passageway to the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea was finally about to open. Huff! After taking a deep breath, Xiaoyan did not blindly use his physical strength this time around. Instead,
He raised both of his hands and his 10 fingers moved together to form a seal rapidly. At the same time, the dou qi in his body surged and quickly agglomerated into a flaming finger above Xiao Yan's head.
Desolation Finger. Following this, the instant this finger was formed, Xiao Yan immediately let out a low cry from his mouth.
The huge finger that was suspended high above his head suddenly fell at this moment and violently bombarded the formation in front of him.
Boom! A violent bombardment immediately spread out and the entire passageway trembled violently at this moment.
Following this, a clear cracking sound was heard and this almost solid formation suddenly burst apart.
When the formation disappeared, the passageway in front of Xiao Yan was naturally unobstructed. At the same time, the noise that reverberated beside Xiao Yan's ears also became clear because of this.
Raising his eyes and looking over, at the end of the passageway, a large group of black figures was hurriedly rushing towards where Xiao Yan was at this moment.
Within a short span of a few breaths, they had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan. These people were wearing 2 different colored clothes. One was blue while the other was a dark red robe. They each represented the Sea Shark tribe and the Sea Serpent tribe. However, the people from the 2 tribes, who were usually at odds with each other, had gathered together at this moment. They used all their strength to swiftly and wildly rush toward Xiao Yan's side. Seeing Xiao Yan appear in their line of sight, everyone's faces immediately revealed an expression of wild joy. They had just personally witnessed the formation that gave them an incomparable headache being shattered by the latter.
The path in front of them should have been cleared and unobstructed.
How could they not be excited? As they approached, the speed of everyone gradually slowed down. Finally, they stopped in front of Xiao Yan. Thank you, Elder, for saving us. Although Xiao Yan's appearance in front of them was not much different from them, since the person in front of them was able to enter this place, it meant that he was personally appointed by the leaders of their 2 tribes. Such a person could not be disrespected. Hearing this, Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. He then asked, "How many people from the Sea tribe are left in the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea?"
"Sir, the people from the younger generation of our tribe are all gathered here. There should be no one else left in the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea. This is because the moment the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea changed, we have all gathered at the exit.
It has been a full week. There should be no one else."
After Xiao Yan's end, Xiao Yan's, Zhao's, the of the emptiness of the sea.
At the same time, outside the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea, everyone was anxiously waiting. Until a certain moment, the originally calm entrance to the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea suddenly surged. Circle after circle of energy ripples swiftly spread. Soon after, a human figure suddenly shot out from within. Immediately, a second human figure followed by even more. When a large group of figures leaped out like fish, the crowd outside also became restless. Cheers rose one after another. The people of the 2 clans who were anxious a moment ago had a look of ecstasy on their faces in the next moment. At the same time, the big stone hanging high in the bottom of their hearts was also steadily dropped. However, among these people, the 2 leaders of the 2 sea clans and Xianxia, who was floating in the air with his brows tightly knitted, did not change their expressions for a long time. Until the last person jumped out of the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea, the 3 of them still did not see the person they were looking forward to seeing. What's going on? Ling why hasn't she come out yet? Blood Crown. What exactly happened to you? The leader of the Sea Serpent clan, Sky-Devouring Dragon, frowned as he stared at the entrance of the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea. Until the last moment, when Xiao Yan came out, he did not see his son leave.
This made him feel uneasy in his heart.
Did any of you see Hai Ling? Standing up, Hai Zhantian's face was filled with worry as he loudly shouted. Instantly, everyone's gazes involuntarily landed on him. Did you see Blood Crown? Did he leave the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea with you? At this time, Sky-Devouring Dragon also came to Hai Zhantian's side. The 2 of them stood at the same height and scanned the crowd below with the same expression. However, almost everyone frowned and shook their heads.
It was only after a long while that a member of the Sea Serpent clan hesitantly opened his mouth and said, "Clan leader, when we gathered at the entrance of the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea, I saw the young clan leader. However, he didn't stay there for long before he hurriedly entered the depths of the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea.
As for where he went, I don't know." As soon as this was said, Sky-Devouring Dragon's face suddenly changed. In this case, Blood Crown was indeed still in the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea.
As for Hai Zhantian's granddaughter, Hai Ling, although the situation was unknown, it was certain that the latter was definitely still in the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea. In the end, other than the sons and daughters of the two clan leaders, the rest of the younger generation of the two sea clans had all come out.
This was a bit of a joke.
At this moment, while the two of them felt dignified, two pairs of eyes involuntarily fell on Xiao Yan again. Feeling the gazes of these two people, Xiao Yan could only helplessly smile bitterly in his heart. The younger generation of the Sea clan had just escaped from danger. How could they enter the tiger's den again at this moment? Therefore, the heavy burden of going in to find the two people naturally fell on him again.
Little friend Xiao Yan, I'm afraid
I have to trouble you again.
Hai Zhantian frowned. Hai Zhantian knit his brows.
He was naturally aware of the dangers of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. Once Xiao Yan entered and was unable to find the two of them within a short period of time, forget about rescuing them.
He might even end up losing his life.
Such a thing was something that an ordinary person would not be able to do. However, Xiao Yan was not someone that an ordinary person could compare with.
All right, I'll go in again, but I have to say in advance that I'm not completely confident that I can find them.
If I can't find them in the end, then no matter what, I will withdraw from the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea.
Xiao Yan inhaled a deep breath of air and nodded his head. At the same time, he also mentioned the worst possible outcome. Although he would intervene, this was under the precondition that he could ensure his own safety. He would not do a business that would result in a loss. Hearing this, Hai Zhantian and the heaven-devouring dragon nodded. They naturally understood this point. However, what they hoped in their hearts was that Xiao Yan could safely bring Blood Crown and Hai Ling out of the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea. This was the best outcome for both sides. Immediately after, Xiao Yan turned around and was about to enter the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea again. However, at this moment, Xiao Xian stopped him. Xiao Yan, there's one thing I have to remind you. I don't have much spiritual strength left, and the pressure from the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea is increasing. I can't guarantee the stability of the space inside the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea. Therefore, you must come out within 7 days. Otherwise, once 7 days have passed, I'm afraid I won't be able to support the space of the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea. At that time, you will be sealed inside. As for what will happen to the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea, no one knows. Therefore you must be quick. Even if you can't find them, you have to take care of yourself. Xiao Xian's tone was particularly solemn. Hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded heavily and muttered, 7 days? That's enough. Don't worry, ancestor. I will definitely come out. With a smile, Xiao Yan turned around and once again disappeared into the entrance of the emptiness realm at the bottom of the sea. At the same time, the smile on his face immediately turned serious. Chapter 1034. Xiao Yan naturally adapted to this tunnel even faster than before after entering it once again. He opened his eyes and immediately moved, swiftly flying toward the deep parts of the tunnel. In 7 days, he must find the 2 young masters of the Sea clan in this underwater virtual realm. It was easy to say, but it was extremely difficult to do. The underwater virtual realm was a world of its own. The space inside was not small. Looking for one person in thousands of miles of mountains and rivers was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Not to mention that he was looking for 2 people now. In addition to the changes in the underwater virtual realm, the environment was more or less damaged. This greatly increased the difficulty of Xiao Yan to find them. 2 hours later, Xiao Yan finally reached the end of the passage. After passing through a blue light curtain, the world in front of him suddenly opened up. In the vast and boundless world, there were mountains and mountains. The lush forest covered thousands of miles. The torrential river stretched across the mountains and mountains, extending to the endless distance. However, this beautiful scene had already changed drastically at this moment. The mountains collapsed, the forests were overturned, and even the river was blocked by an inexplicable force. The whole world was filled with wild and violent roars. Birds and beasts were running around between the heaven and earth. There were even magical beasts that turned their eyes to Xiao Yan, who suddenly appeared, and they immediately roared and attacked. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan immediately frowned. He flipped his hand and the heavy Xian ruler immediately landed in his hand. The huge ruler swept horizontally and the wide surface of the ruler smashed the huge beast that was heading toward him, sending it flying. It smashed into the mountain forest below and attracted even more magic beasts. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan couldn't help but secretly say in his heart. It seemed that the trouble he had to face was not only the environment of this world, but also these troublesome magical beasts. In this way, the difficulty of finding people would be greatly increased. Facing the magical beasts that rushed over again, Xiao Yan raised the giant buster sword in his hand. His palm pressed against the surface of the buster sword, and he waved it fiercely. The white flame immediately climbed up the buster sword. Then, he turned around and swept it. The magnificent buster sword swept out, and the oncoming magical beasts were blown away again. However, these magical beasts seemed to be endless. They were like waves that rushed to the shore. Each wave was higher than the previous one, and it was endless. After more than 10 times of resistance, Xiao Yan's heart couldn't help but feel heavy. He didn't know why these guys worked together to put their brutal killing intent on him, a human. Perhaps it was because he didn't belong to this space. After all, it was because of them that this world was in such a ruined state. All of this was caused by them, the outsiders. Sorry, I can't make up for what happened here. I didn't come here to look for you. When I find those two people, I will leave. Frowning and shaking his head, Xiao Yan put away the dark buster sword. When another wave of magical beasts rushed over, his figure suddenly flickered and turned into a gust of wind. He passed through this place at an amazing speed, and soon disappeared from this world. After a while, Xiao Yan's figure landed on the top of a mountain. This place was relatively safe. At least there weren't any magical beasts in the vicinity. Sitting down cross-legged, Xiao Yan closed his eyes. From between his eyebrows, surging soul power suddenly spread out and quickly searched for the two special auras in this mountain forest. Xianxia and the heaven-devouring flood dragon had specially given Xiao Yan an accessory that contained the aura of the two of them before they entered the void realm at the bottom of the sea. This also increased the chances of Xiao Yan finding them. However, the vastness of the underwater void realm was obviously something that Xiao Yan didn't expect. Even with his soul power, after a search, he still couldn't find the auras of the two people. In other words, he now had to find another place to search. In addition, he couldn't rule out the possibility that the two people could move around at any time. In this way, the probability of Xiao Yan finding them would be even lower. In addition, if the two people had already been besieged by those magical beasts and died, Xiao Yan didn't dare to think about this point, nor did he want to think about it. After all, his purpose in entering the underwater void realm was not to see the worst result. Xiao Yan's probing was useless. He could only get up and continue to head to the deepest part of the void realm. At the same time, his spiritual strength was searching all around him. Unfortunately, his probing was useless. Instead, it attracted the attention of quite a number of magical beasts with powerful cultivations. This also added a lot of trouble to Xiao Yan's search. At the same time, Xianxia and the heaven-devouring dragon outside were also waiting anxiously. Time passed little by little. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Yan had been in the underwater void realm for 4 days. However, Xiao Yan still didn't know the whereabouts of the two people. Until a certain moment. In the underwater void realm, Xiao Yan was floating in the air, frowning as he looked around. Ever since he entered the underwater void realm, he had been constantly going deeper. From his current distance, even if he rushed to the entrance of the underwater void realm, it would take a long time. If he continued to search blindly, the time left for him would be even more limited. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Yan gritted his teeth, raised his gaze, and rushed forward again. No matter what, he had to persevere until the last moment. Boom! At this moment, somewhere in the underwater void realm, an earth-shattering boom suddenly resounded in the underwater void realm like thunder. Immediately, Xiao Yan's rushing figure suddenly stopped. A pair of sharp eyes also looked in the direction of the sound. He couldn't see the specific location of the sound, but he could feel the strong aura of the explosion. Therefore, Xiao Yan almost didn't think much in his heart and immediately rushed in that direction. Regardless of whether it was one of the two people, as long as there was even the slightest possibility, it was worth Xiao Yan to try. A short moment later, Xiao Yan's figure had already appeared in the sky above the place where the explosive sound was emitted. Looking down from a high vantage point, he saw that the place where the sound originated from was a small valley. At this very moment, a young man wearing the clothes of the sea serpent tribe was facing a group of magical beasts that had once again surrounded him with an extremely solemn expression. His heart was like the rocks that had fallen into the valley, falling to the bottom of the valley. In addition, Xiao Yan also discovered that there was a surging aura of energy that was constantly increasing in the depths of the small valley. The energy of the world was also gathering because of this. It wasn't hard to imagine that the reason why these magical beasts gathered here was because of the inhalation in the valley. Hey, it is really a case of searching high and low only to find it by sheer luck. It is unexpected that these two people are actually in the same place. This has saved me quite a lot of time. Xiao Yan smiled in his heart and involuntarily sighed in relief. From the looks of the energy state in the valley, that person was clearly at the critical moment of his breakthrough. If he was disturbed at this moment, it was likely that not only would his breakthrough be interrupted, but even his foundation would be affected. However, from the looks of that man, he appeared to be determined. It seemed that he was determined to help him block these magical beasts that were coming. Roar! It was also at this moment that the magical beasts that surrounded the man below once again launched an attack. Even though the young man had the cultivation of a 9-star Do-D, he was unable to block the combined attack of over 10 magical beasts. Within a couple of breaths, the young man's attack was directly suppressed. After which, the remaining few magical beasts circled around the young man and charged into the small valley. Damn it, don't even think about entering. Seeing this scene, the expression on the young man's face immediately changed drastically. He ignored the other magical beasts around him and attempted to charge toward the entrance of the valley. However, he was sent flying by a magical beast beside him with a claw. He could only watch the few magical beasts enter the valley with an unwillingness in his heart. Bang! However, it was also at this moment that a dark black flowing light descended from the sky like a falling star. It instantly descended on the head of the magical beast that was leading the group. A frightening strength immediately erupted. That magical beast did not even have the time to emit a miserable cry before it was instantly killed by this strength. Those magical beasts that followed close behind were also sent flying by the enormous black ruler that was swung over. In the blink of an eye, the entrance of the valley was completely cleaned by this unknown strength. After which, the smoke and dust scattered in front of the young man's shocked eyes. A black-robed young man was standing upright on the head of the magical beast that had already died. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a smile. His gaze landed on the former as he asked with a smile, "You are the Blood Crown?" Chapter 1035. Yes, yes. May I ask who you are? The young man climbed up from the ground in a miserable manner. He ignored the pain that was being transmitted from all over his body as he asked with a surprised face. I am called Xiao Yan. I was entrusted by Xianxia and the heaven-devouring flood dragon to rescue you. The one inside should be the granddaughter of Xianxia, Linger, right? Xiao Yan sighed in relief. He nodded, raised his chin and asked once again. Yes. However, she is currently at the critical moment of her breakthrough. Therefore, please ensure that she will not be affected. As soon as he heard that it was someone his father and Xianxia had found, a look of joy flashed across Xue Mian's face. However, immediately after, a wave of worry surged in his heart. He frowned slightly as he looked at the entrance of the valley with a worried look in his eyes. Xiao Yan involuntarily parted his mouth and smiled when he sensed this. It seemed that the reason why Xue Crown had returned to the deep part of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea was most likely because of Linger. Soon after, Xue Crown leaped and dodged the attack of the magical beast behind him. In the blink of an eye, he arrived beside Xiao Yan. He waved his hand and a halberd immediately landed in his hand. There was a whistling sound as it was waved. It appeared to be quite powerful. Mr. Xiao Yan, please temporarily guard this place with me. We will leave this place together after Linger's cultivation has broken through. The face of Xue Mian, who had recovered, had already become cold. A thought passed through his mind and the Do-Chi within his body immediately surged out. It climbed onto the halberd and emitted a clear watery glow. A layer of strange scales also appeared to have appeared on the halberd. Xiao Yan involuntarily smiled when he saw this. At this moment, Xue Crown had already exhausted over half of his Do-Chi. It was likely that he would not be able to last for long if he continued to fight. If he were to be injured again, it would instead become a burden for him. Cuckoo, I think you should recover your Do-Chi first. With your current condition, you won't be able to hold on. As he spoke, Xiao Yan casually threw a medicinal pill to the latter. Immediately, without waiting for Blood Crown to react,
He lifted the giant ruler and stomped heavily on the ground.
The huge beast's corpse immediately sank a little. At the same time, Xiaoyan's body turned into a dark black ray of light.
In the blink of an eye, he had already charged into the group of magical beasts.
"Mr. Xiaoyan, you're alone." The expression of Xue Mian, who had recovered, immediately changed. His mouth hurriedly opened in an attempt to stop Xiaoyan. However, before the words from his mouth sounded, he saw those magical beasts being ruthlessly sent flying by Xiaoyan's heavy Xian ruler like dolls. They did not even have the slightest ability to retaliate during the entire process. This scene caused one to be stunned. In such a situation, it was simply impossible.
However, creating a possibility out of the seemingly impossible and breaking the norm.
Was this not Xiaoyan? Within a short moment, the group of magical beasts surrounding the small valley had been completely swept away by Xiaoyan. They were either dead or no longer had the ability to fight. Moreover, the moment they saw Xiaoyan, their bodies trembled as they crawled on the ground. Their mouths repeatedly let out miserable cries. Even the will to fight had been forcefully extinguished. The frightening strength that Xiaoyan displayed also caused Xue Mian's heart to be greatly shocked. His entire body was stunned on the spot. He watched the magical beasts scatter and retreat in all directions. After which, he looked at the corpses of the magical beasts all over the ground. His heart really did not dare to imagine that such a frightening battle result was actually achieved by this young man, who appeared to be even younger than him. It was really unbelievable. With Xiaoyan's suppression, the magical beasts did not dare to advance again for a short period of time. Hence, Xiaoyan turned around and entered the valley behind him. Xue Mian followed closely behind him. After the two of them entered the valley, they looked around and saw that the small cave was surrounded by mountains on all sides. Only at the top could they see a small piece of the sky. There were also many slits between the mountains on all sides. The energy of the world entered through the slits and the exit directly above. As the slits were too narrow, the magical beasts from the outside world could not enter through them. The entrance above was too high. Hence, the only way for the magical beasts to enter the valley was through the entrance behind Xiaoyan and Xue Mian. Xiaoyan could not help but nod his head when he saw the unique terrain. This was a good place for a breakthrough.
Not only could it ensure that one could absorb enough energy from the world, it could also reduce most of the trouble and prevent the breakthrough process from being affected.
It had to be said that the two of them had found a good place. Unfortunately, the incident at the bottom of the sea had caused the magical beasts to become much more violent. As a result, they had noticed the change in energy here and caused trouble for the two of them. If Xiaoyan had not arrived in time, the two of them would have lost their lives. Sweeping his gaze over the valley, he saw a natural rock in the middle of the valley. It just so happened that the sunlight that shone in from all parts of the valley shone on it. At this moment, a young lady in a blue dress with an exquisite face was seated on the rock with her eyes tightly shut. As she breathed in and out, the energy gathered in the valley was constantly being absorbed and refined by her. At the same time, the aura within the young lady's body was rapidly increasing. From the looks of it, the young lady would be able to complete her breakthrough soon. Before this, it was likely that all the trouble during this period of time would be left to Xiaoyan and Bloodcrown to deal with. After giving his instructions, Bloodcrown found a place in the valley and began to refine the medicinal pill that Xiaoyan had given him earlier. On the other hand, Xiaoyan's body flashed, and he appeared at the top of the valley in the blink of an eye. He looked down at the environment outside the valley from above. At a glance, magical beasts of various sizes were quietly approaching from the distant mountain forest. Low roars continuously rang out, and these fellows seemed to be communicating with each other. Subsequently, when the countless magical beasts arrived at the bottom of the valley, they did not charge into the valley this time. Instead, they climbed up the walls of the valley and wildly charged towards the top of the valley. Their target was undoubtedly Xiaoyan. Very quickly, these huge magical beasts arrived around Xiaoyan. Their enormous bodies covered the entire periphery of the valley, forming a black mass. Other than these, there were still countless magical beasts charging over from the distant mountain forest. Without exception, their target was Xiaoyan, who was currently standing at the top of the valley. Countless magical beasts chased each other as they charged up the slope of the valley. Their invisible aura was enough to shock anyone. However, at this moment, Xiaoyan's face did not show the slightest trace of fear in the face of such a situation. Instead, it was cold. He held the huge ruler in his hand, and with a thought, a dense white flame immediately rose.
He waved the huge ruler and smashed it down on the head of a magical beast that was pouncing towards him.
Chapter 1036.
Bang!
As the ruler fell, a magical beast that was charging towards Xiao Yan was instantly killed. However, countless magical beasts were still crazily charging towards him from behind. The roars of the magical beasts reverberated endlessly, causing the valley below to tremble. It was unknown whether it was caused by the large number of magical beasts or the vibrations caused by the roars of the magical beasts. At this very moment, Xiao Yan's body was standing proudly at the top of the valley. His front, back, left, and right were surrounded by magical beasts. Fierce attacks were launched at Xiao Yan from all directions. Sharp fangs, claws, and doqi energy flew out repeatedly. All of them shot explosively toward Xiao Yan, aiming to take his life. Xiao Yan's expression did not change in the face of this situation. He held the huge ruler in a reverse grip with one hand. At the same time that the huge ruler swept horizontally, his other hand violently swept across the tip of the ruler. A dense white flame immediately rose. It carried a ferocious aura as it abruptly swept in front of Xiao Yan. In an instant, the magical beasts that were pouncing toward Xiao Yan were all forced back. Almost at the same time, the moment the giant ruler swept horizontally, the hand that was holding the ruler's hilt suddenly released. Xiao Yan's figure also abruptly turned back. In an extremely strange posture, the moment the giant ruler was about to fall, his other hand suddenly grabbed the ruler's hilt. Surging do qi immediately poured into the giant ruler, followed by another sweep. The magical beasts in front of and behind him were all swept away in the blink of an eye. However, just as Xiao Yan swept away the wave, a few more magical beasts charged towards him from all directions. Xiao Yan sent a few flying with his ruler. Immediately, his figure leaped and stepped on the head of a magical beast. He twisted his body and sent it flying with a kick. In just a few hours, Xiao Yan had consecutively sent more than 100 magical beasts flying. The number of magical beasts that he had killed was also more than 10. However, the surrounding magical beasts seemed to be endless as they continuously surged towards him. However, this kind of situation did not seem to wear down Xiao Yan's patience. Instead, it increased the fanatical fighting spirit in the latter's heart. Relying on the giant ruler in his hand, facing so many magical beasts, he used the most violent method to fight to his heart's content. This allowed him to completely display his strength. From a certain point of view, such a violent fighting method also had some benefits for Xiao Yan himself. Suddenly, Xiao Yan, who was originally fiercely colliding at the top of the valley, at the entrance of the valley, a magical beast actually attempted to step over the corpse of the previous magical beast and enter the valley. Immediately, Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly. He stepped on the magical beast's body and sent it flying. At the same time, his figure also swept into the air. He viciously waved the giant ruler in his hand. The giant ruler left his hand and immediately fell at lightning speed. The moment the magical beast was about to enter the valley, its body was forcefully pinned at the entrance of the valley. While killing it, it also blocked the only entrance to the valley. Immediately, countless magical beasts around Xiao Yan crazily surged towards him. Without a weapon, Xiao Yan caused these big guys to be less afraid of him. One by one, they revealed their sharp fangs and viciously bit towards Xiao Yan's body. However, they had underestimated the human in front of them. Force Elephant Technique, Golden Elephant Technique, activate. Soon after, a low cry was emitted from Xiao Yan's heart the moment he landed. Almost at the same time, the powerful physical strength hidden in Xiao Yan's body was completely released at this moment. A golden-colored barrier agglomerated on the surface of Xiao Yan's body. Regardless of how those magical beasts charged over, Xiao Yan only cared about waving his fists and attacking the magical beasts that were charging toward him head-on. Immediately, painful roars that were even more miserable than before were emitted from the pile of magical beasts. Compared to a moment ago, the current Xiao Yan seemed to be able to break through everything by relying on his pair of fists. Any attack would be swiftly toppled in an unstoppable manner under Xiao Yan's fist. Xue Mian widened his mouth as he stood within the valley. He lifted his head to look at Xiao Yan at the top. The shock that had originally been revealed in his eyes had already disappeared with the flow of time. Only his face remained stiff and distorted as though it was cramping. Very quickly, a day had passed. There were less than 2 days left from the 7 days that Xiao Xian had mentioned. In the small valley, Hai Ling Er's breakthrough process had yet to end. This also meant that Xiao Yan and Bloodcrown still had to wait here. At this moment, Xiao Yan, who was at the top of the deep valley, could not help but feel secretly worried. If this dragged on for too long, it would not be beneficial to them. With less than 2 days left, he was not confident that he could bring the two of them out of the underwater void realm. He could only say that if Hai Ling-er's breakthrough did not end, he could only use force to bring her away. He could not continue to stay here. Finally, at noon, the churning natural energy around Hai Ling-er, who had been in a breakthrough state, finally slowly calmed down. The aura within her body had also stabilized at the initial 9-star Do D level. The pair of pretty eyes that had been shut for over 10 days slowly opened. A pair of icy blue crystal eyes were immediately exposed in the air. The young lady slowly stood up. The long dress that she was wearing fluttered gently, revealing a pair of white jade-like slender beautiful legs. Her curvaceous figure was also fully displayed at this moment. Ling-er, you have broken through. Only when the young lady stood up did Bloodcrown recover from his absent-mindedness.
He hurriedly ran to the front of the young lady and carefully helped her down the green stone platform with one hand.
At the same time, he asked with a voice filled with concern. Hearing this, the young lady's pretty face reddened as she nodded. She immediately said, "Big brother Bloodcrown, thank you for protecting me during these few days. Otherwise, I don't know if I would be able to break through in peace." Ugh! Hearing this, Bloodcrown smiled awkwardly and scratched his head.
After which, he said in a somewhat embarrassed manner, "Actually, not all of them.
I was able to easily deal with those magical beasts a few days ago. However, since the day before yesterday, there have been an increasing number of magical beasts gathering here. I am no longer able to block them." Towards the end, Bloodcrown could not help but lower his head in self-blame. Seeing this, Hai Ling-er involuntarily knit her brows in a somewhat uncertain manner. Since Bloodcrown had said that she was no longer able to block those magical beasts since the day before yesterday, what was going on for the next 1 or 2 days? It's that person. That human called Xiao Yan. He suddenly appeared the day before yesterday. With just him alone, he blocked all the magical beasts outside. Suddenly, Bloodcrown raised his head. He extended his hand and pointed to the highest point of the valley.
Through the hole at that spot, the two of them could clearly see a human figure with a golden light lingering over his body.
He was repeatedly waving his fist and sending the magical beasts around him flying with each punch. Sensing the gazes of the two people in the valley below, Xiao Yan also knew that Hai Ling-er had completed her breakthrough. Now, it was finally time to leave.
Xiao Yan descended and landed beside the two of them. He glanced at Hai Ling-er, who had already exited her cultivation state. He let out a long sigh of relief and nodded.
"You have broken through. Now, we should also leave this place." Roar! When Xiao Yan descended, the magical beasts outside also rushed in through the entrance above the valley and heavily surrounded the three of them. Immediately, Hai Ling-er and Bloodcrown's minds tensed up.
They faced the magical beasts around them and their expressions immediately became solemn.
"Mr. Xiao Yan, it looks like we have to experience a fierce battle before we leave," Bloodcrown said in a low voice. With a thought, the Do Qi in his body began to circulate rapidly. Hai Ling-er also did the same. On the other hand, Xiao Yan frowned and shook his head. He sighed softly and said, "No, we don't have so much time to waste. We have to leave now." After speaking without waiting for Bloodcrown and Hai Ling-er to ask any questions, Xiao Yan stretched out his hand and beckoned. The dark heavy buster sword outside the valley immediately flew back. It passed through the encirclement of the magical beasts and quickly returned to Xiao Yan's hand. After which, he flipped his hand and kept it in his storage ring. Immediately after, under the surprised gazes of the two people behind him, Xiao Yan raised his right hand. A strange dark energy light spot had unknowingly condensed in the palm of his right hand.
"It's over." As these words were uttered, his palm fell and pressed heavily on the void.
Great Heaven Creation Palm. Fight the Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Fight the Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Chapter 1037. In the blink of an eye, another half a day had passed. Now, there was only 1 day left before the 7-day deadline that Xiao Xian had mentioned. Xiao Yan's group of 3 had to reach the exit of the underwater void realm within a day and leave this place successfully. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable.
Half a day's time did not allow the 3 of them to travel far. When Xiao Yan informed Xue Mian and Xue Mian about the situation of the baleen whale at the bottom of the sea, the expressions on their faces suddenly changed. It was unexpected that the situation of the void realm at the bottom of the sea had already reached such an extent.
Speaking of which, all of this could be blamed on their sea clan. Their endless greed had finally paid the price for it. According to Blood Crown's estimation, the three of them were at least a full day away from the exit of the underwater void realm. Even if the three of them could reach the exit of the underwater void realm in a day, they were destined to not be able to leave the underwater void realm. Now, there was not much time left for the three of them. Xiao Yan led Xue Mian and Xue Mian as they cut through all the obstacles along the way. The magical beasts that came to obstruct them were all finished off by Xiao Yan in one strike in the most violent manner. Despite this, the speed at which the three of them were moving forward was unknowingly slowed. Damn it! We can't go on like this. We have to be faster. Xiao Yan could not help but curse after forcefully killing a magical beast in front of him with a punch. He turned his head to look at the countless magical beasts that were charging towards them again in the distance. Xiao Yan could not help but reveal a solemn expression. No matter how heroic he was, it was impossible for him to continue fighting without stopping. Furthermore, there was less than a day left before the deadline that Xiao Xian had mentioned. If they were delayed by the siege of these magical beasts, the three of them would really not have the chance to leave this place. Mr. Xiao Yan, what should we do? The Blood Crown knew that only by relying on Xiao Yan and the others would they have a chance at survival. Therefore, they had to rely on Xiao Yan. Hai Ling Air by the side also turned her eyes to Xiao Yan after Xue Jian opened his mouth. After seeing the shocking strength that Xiao Yan had displayed, she had already been subdued by his strength. Moreover, there was still Xue Jian by the side at this moment. Since even Xue Jian wanted to seek Xiao Yan's opinion, she would naturally not say anything more. After a little hesitation, Xiao Yan's mind moved, and the space in front of him suddenly distorted. In the blink of an eye, it turned into two dark tents. With a wave of his hand, the two tents turned into two black robes, which Xiao Yan handed to the two. After the two of them put on the black robes, Xiao Yan immediately took out two elixirs from his storage ring and handed them to the two of them. These two are wind speed elixirs. They can temporarily increase your speed, and the black robes on your bodies can conceal your aura to ensure that you won't be discovered by those magical beasts. When those magical beasts rush over later, I will temporarily hold them back. The two of you will find the right time to leave this place quickly and rush to the exit of the underwater void realm as quickly as possible. What will you do if we leave? Hearing Xiao Yan's words, the Blood Crown frowned. He didn't dare to say that he was a person who wasn't afraid of death, but he definitely couldn't leave those who helped him in the lurch. The Blood Crown felt really bad about letting them leave just like that. Don't worry, after you leave this place, I will naturally follow you immediately. However, you must also make sure to conceal your aura as much as possible along the way. You must not have any conflicts with those magical beasts. Otherwise, everything will be too late. Nodding with a serious expression, before the Blood Crown could speak again, Xiao Yan's figure suddenly moved. The pitch-black dark heavy buster sword suddenly appeared in his hand. With a wave of the giant buster sword, the magical beasts that attacked the three of them were blown away. Violent explosions sounded one after another, and the faces of the Blood Crown and Hai Ling also became gloomy because of this. The two of them hesitated for a long time, and finally gritted their teeth. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the two of them quickly left the battlefield. Sensing the departure of the two of them, Xiao Yan, who was in the middle of the magical beasts, had a cold expression on his face. His extremely cold gaze quickly swept across the magical beasts around him. The giant buster sword in his hand trembled slightly, and suddenly, a white flame rose up. A powerful force crazily condensed in the giant buster sword, and a terrifying energy aura spread out from Xiao Yan's body. The surrounding magical beasts also let out a low roar. 7 layers. Sky. Breaking. Ruler. Spitting out the words one by one, Xiao Yan suddenly raised his head. Then, he lifted the dark heavy buster sword in his hand. Both of his hands held the handle of the buster sword tightly, and the giant buster sword in his hand suddenly swept out. A terrifying wave of flames immediately swept out, spanning 1,000 miles and sweeping between heaven and earth. 1 foot. 2 feet. After 7 feet, all the magical beasts within a 500-kilometer radius of Xiao Yan were turned into a pile of corpses in the blink of an eye. The merciless flame burned in this place. The mountain forest below was a sea of fire. The invisible space had completely collapsed. At this moment, the only person who still had life remaining in this place was Xiao Yan. At this moment, the latter was like a killing god, leaving no leeway and not giving any life. After doing all this, Xiao Yan once again kept the dark heavy buster sword.
He was just about to charge in the direction that the Shui Mian duo had left in when his body involuntarily swayed.
He actually nearly fell from the sky.
After the repeated fierce battles, the dou qi within his body had been completely exhausted without him realizing it.
The 7 feet earlier was already his final technique. If Xiao Yan was unable to recover his dou qi as soon as possible, it was likely that he would not even be able to use the sky extinction step, much less catch up with Shui Mian and Shui Yan.
Oh, damn it! It actually had to happen at this time. The dou qi in his body was exhausted, causing Xiao Yan's face to involuntarily reveal a somewhat strained expression.
He hurriedly consumed a couple of medicinal pills.
Before the medicinal effect of the medicinal pills in his body dissipated, his body shook, and a faint layer of golden light agglomerated on the surface of Xiao Yan's body.
Helplessly, the dou qi in his body was completely exhausted.
The only thing that Xiao Yan could barely rely on was his remaining physical strength. Bang! His feet stomped heavily on the empty space.
Immediately, the space under his feet became distorted. Xiao Yan's body also suddenly rushed forward.
By relying on his powerful physical strength, the speed that Xiao Yan displayed at this moment could be considered extraordinary. However, if it was just this, it was likely that Xiao Yan would not be able to catch up to the two of them within a short period of time. While feeling a little helpless in his heart, Xiao Yan could only put in more effort to borrow the strength of his physical body to continue charging forward. At the same time, the medicinal strength of the 2 medicinal pills that he had swallowed was also being swiftly absorbed.
Chapter 1038.
Outside the empty realm, Hai Zhantian and the heaven-devouring dragon were waiting anxiously.
Hai Zhantian stood in place, frowning. His hands under his sleeves were constantly opening and clenching.
His eyes were fixed on the entrance of the empty realm, his heart full of worry.
Behind him, the heaven-devouring dragon was also anxious.
He kept pacing back and forth, his footsteps gradually becoming heavier until they reached Hai Zhantian's ears.
"Kid, can't you be quiet? My heart feels like it's about to be crushed by you."
After reprimanding in a low voice, the heaven-devouring dragon let out a long sigh and stopped beside Hai Zhantian. Behind them, the crowd couldn't help but look at each other when they saw the anxious expressions on the two people's faces. Their hearts also became nervous.
On the other side, Hai Machin also came to Hai Zhantian's side. His eyes flickered slightly.
He raised his hand and patted the latter's shoulder. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I believe in that kid. With him, your granddaughter and the other kid will definitely be safe and sound."
Hearing this, Hai Zhantian frowned and sighed.
The heaven-devouring dragon hurriedly cupped his hands towards Hai Machin. Hai Machin waved his hand and let it go. However, at this moment, in addition to these people who were worried, there was another person who was much more nervous than them. That was Xiao Xian, whose body was completely transparent and his aura was extremely weak. Compared to the others, Xiao Xian was more aware of the situation in the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. After so many days of bitter struggle, his spiritual strength had long been overwhelmed. He had been forcibly holding on. His purpose was to wait for Xiao Yan's return. But now, his spiritual strength was far from enough to maintain the normal operation of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. It wouldn't be long before the stable state of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea would be completely broken. At that time, Xiao Yan, who was in the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, would be in even more danger. At the same time, in the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, Shui Mian and Hai Linger were walking together. With Xiao Yan's black robe and the wind speed pill, the two of them were much faster. They didn't dare to say that they could achieve twice the result with half the effort, but they were not too far away from the exit of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. All along the way, the two of them looked at the dilapidated mountains and lands below, and they couldn't help but reveal an expression of pity in their eyes. They never imagined that because of the interference of their sea tribe, this world would actually become like this. In the end, it was still their fault. On the other side, the dou qi within Xiao Yan's body was still gradually recovering under the effect of the medicinal pill. At the same time, Xiao Yan continued to use the strength of his physical body.
And Xiao Xian's.
Xiao Shui. As Shui Xian S of the realm was, Xian's of the realm. As Xian, Shui,
Xian's Xian. Shui's. However, the result of this explosion was not satisfactory. No matter how much Xiao Yan squeezed out the strength of his physical body, the distance he flew forward each time was almost the same. The distance he flew was far from being able to make up for the energy he exhausted when he unleashed his strength. The result of this cycle would only slow down Xiao Yan's traveling speed. In addition to this, the other trouble was naturally the magical beasts wandering in the mountains. As soon as they saw Xiao Yan flying across the sky, they immediately rushed towards him like crazy. They had a violent feeling that they wanted to swallow him alive. In the face of these countless troublesome creatures, Xiao Yan had no other means except to kill them by force. However, this also increased the consumption of Xiao Yan's physical strength in another aspect. If this continued, Xiao Yan would probably die here before he reached the exit of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. Rumble! Suddenly, the entire underwater empty realm began to shake intensely. A countless number of mountains collapsed, the river flowed in reverse, the mountains were overturned, and the forest was destroyed. Painful and terrified roars continued to reverberate in this world. The invisible empty space seemed to have been pressed by some kind of strength as it swiftly became distorted. Xiao Yan immediately sensed an invisible strength descend on his shoulder, causing his body, which was standing in the empty space, to involuntarily descend a little. With a thought, the dou qi that had just recovered in his body immediately entered his meridians. His body shook slightly. Only then did he stabilize his body that was about to continue descending. At the same time, Xiao Yan's face also instantly became solemn. Looking up, in the distant sky, the invisible sky had collapsed. The entire world was gradually submerged in darkness. The endless void spread out like seawater, vowing to drown the entire empty realm at the bottom of the sea. Damn it, the empty realm at the bottom of the sea has already begun to collapse. Xiao Yan's expression sank. He involuntarily cursed quietly. The empty realm at the bottom of the sea had begun to collapse in advance. This meant that the so-called final day that was left for him would likely shrink greatly. If he did not leave this place as soon as possible, it was likely that even Xiao Yan would be drowned in this endless empty space. Almost at the same time, Xiao Xian, who was outside the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, also slowly dimmed due to the exhaustion of his spiritual strength. In the end, he turned into a milky white ball of light the size of a fist. His originally dense aura also became silent because of this. Not far away, Hai Machen's expression could not help but change slightly when he saw this scene. His body instantly flashed and he arrived beside the ball of light. He extended his hand and an invisible force wrapped around the ball of light, preventing it from being disturbed by the energy of the world outside. Hai Zhantian quickly went forward. Seeing that Xiao Xian had actually turned into such a state, his expression became even more anxious. Cold sweat unknowingly flowed down from his temples. His deep eyes stared fixedly at the entrance of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, not daring to shift his gaze away for even a moment. Without the support of his spiritual strength, the space within the empty realm at the bottom of the sea has probably already begun to collapse. In other words, the last day of the 7 days that Xiao Xian told Xiao Yan that day is probably even more tense than expected. Now, we can only hope that Xiao Yan has already found the two of them, and is already in the passage at the entrance. At this moment, even Hai Machen could not help but feel a little shocked. The scene that had occurred at this moment really caused even him to feel surprised. However, he did not know just what kind of situation Xiao Yan's 3-man group was currently facing. In the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, the entire world had already begun to collapse. Countless magical beasts fled in all directions. Xiao Yan and the other two also rushed towards the exit of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea without stopping. With the help of the things that Xiao Yan had given them, Xuemian and Hai Ling finally arrived in front of the exit of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea ahead of time. When the two of them arrived, they could not help but have a joyful expression on their faces. However, when they arrived, the two of them were not in a hurry to enter the exit. Instead, they stopped and turned around to look in the direction they had come from, hoping to see traces of Xiao Yan. Unfortunately, the latter's figure did not appear in their field of vision for a long time. Seeing that the world around them had begun to collapse inch by inch, the two young people could not help but feel a surge of fear in their hearts. At the same time, they became even more worried for Xiao Yan. The latter had blocked the countless magical beasts by himself, and the two of them had taken the lead to escape without caring about the latter. This really made the two of them feel extremely guilty.
At this moment, when they could not see Xiao Yan's figure again, the two of them were even unwilling to leave this place.
Chapter 1039.
Xue Mian held the delicate hand of the young lady within the underwater void realm. His brows were tightly knit as he stared in the direction they had come from. His heart was incomparably anxious as he waited. Rumble. Rumbling sounds repeatedly sounded in the sky. The invisible space distorted intensely before collapsing. Suddenly, numerous dark black thunderbolts shot out from the endless empty space. They carried a frightening aura that could destroy the world as they instantly destroyed a large area of the mountain forest below. A countless number of magical beasts were instantly killed by this thunderbolt. The surrounding mountain forest that had collapsed had already turned into a sea of fire. The entire underwater void realm had become like a purgatory at this moment. Xue Mian and Hai Ling Er, who was hiding behind him, were startled when they saw this scene. The young lady behind him involuntarily let out an exclamation. Perspiration appeared on Xue Mian's forehead. His heart was also extremely shocked. The strength of the thunderbolt was unimaginable. Once the thunderbolt targeted the two of them, it was likely that they would not even have the chance to dodge. Big brother Xue Mr. Xiao Yan has yet to come out. The young lady's heart was filled with fear as she grabbed a corner of Xue Mian's black robe. Her heart was filled with worry as she timidly opened her mouth to speak.
Relax, it's fine.
Mr. Xiao Yan's strength is the strongest among all the elite Do Di that I have seen.
Let's wait a little longer. He will definitely come out. Xue Mian clenched his teeth. He looked at the ground below, which had partially collapsed.
His heart involuntarily sank. If Xiao Yan still did not come out, it was likely that they would have to enter the exit of the underwater void realm regardless of what happened.
Another 15 minutes.
If Mr. Xiao Yan does not come out within 15 minutes, we can only leave this place first. Xue Mian gently patted the young lady's shoulder as he comforted her. The latter obediently nodded her head when she heard this. She suppressed the fear in her heart and waited patiently. At the same time, deep within the underwater void realm, Xiao Yan was borrowing Do Qi while pressing his tired body. He forcefully maneuvered the strength within his muscles and shot forward time and time again.
Xiao Yan's sweat kept pouring out, drenching his robe.
Most of it fell into the endless abyss below. The endless land was collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the land in front of Xiao Yan had completely collapsed. Numerous shocking thunderbolts continued to fall from the endless, dark black empty space, mercilessly killing the magical beasts that were fleeing in all directions. At a glance, it appeared as though they were cleaning up this world that had been contaminated by the outside world. Now that the laws had changed, there was no longer a need for the underwater void realm to exist. It was only a matter of time before it completely collapsed and disappeared. Seeing what was happening in front of him, Xiao Yan's heart could not help but tighten. He clenched his teeth and once again gathered all the strength in his body. He tried his best to move his body and rushed forward. However, it was also at this moment that a shockingly frightening thunderbolt suddenly fell from the endless empty space above Xiao Yan's head.
Damn it! Xiao Yan's expression changed.
He used all his strength to maneuver the Do Qi that he had just recovered. At the same time, the little bit of strength that he had gathered all over his body also erupted at this moment. His body leaned to the side and he hurriedly dodged to one side. Rumble! The thunderbolt descended and violently smashed onto Xiao Yan's body. A frightening destructive strength spread from within it. One could even clearly see that the endless empty space, which had already collapsed, had become distorted. In the end, Xiao Yan was extremely lucky and brushed past the edge of the bolt of lightning. The incomparable bolt of lightning was thus submerged in the endless void. Despite this, a little of the frightening lightning strength contained within the bolt of lightning still entered Xiao Yan's body. It swiftly spread through his limbs and bones. Immediately, a wave of numbness was transmitted into Xiao Yan's mind. His entire body also fell uncontrollably. Rumble! That bolt of lightning appeared to be unwilling to give up after missing its attack. However, this time around, Xiao Yan's body was completely out of his control. He could only watch as the bolt of lightning smashed down on his body.
Damn it! Move! Quickly move!
His tired body was out of control. Xiao Yan let out a wild roar in his mind. The frightening bolt of lightning swiftly descended. In the blink of an eye, it was merely 10 feet away from his body. At such a distance, even an ordinary 9-star Do Di would have difficulty dodging such a frightening bolt of lightning,
much less the currently exhausted Xiao Yan. Soon after, the bolt of lightning that was filled with a destructive force arrived in front of Xiao Yan. It was merely an inch away from the latter's body. In an instant, the hair all over Xiao Yan's body stood up. The lightning strength had already flowed into Xiao Yan's body through the invisible void. It entered his muscles and bones, and a piercing pain was immediately transmitted. Bang! The bolt of lightning descended and violently passed through the void. It once again entered the endless void. Xiao Yan's body could be said to have miraculously dodged this fatal attack once again. In the void, Xiao Yan resentfully watched the frightening bolt of lightning that entered the endless void. He involuntarily rejoiced in his heart. He did not expect that he would actually be able to profit from a disaster under such a situation. He parted his mouth. It was unknown whether it was because of the pain on his body or the joy in his heart. Immediately, his gaze turned around and landed on his body. Xiao Yan glanced at his shoulder. A thread of tiny thunderbolt leaped out from under his muscles, after which it disappeared. However, the thing that really caused Xiao Yan to be happy was the pale blue Wei Ran illusionary figure that had agglomerated and formed behind him. With the stimulation of the lightning strength, Xiao Yan had stimulated the last hidden strength in his body. He did not expect that under his full strength, Xiao Yan would accidentally condense the blue virtual image behind him. And this was the third art of the four sacred manifestation art, the wing elephant art. It was also the condensation of the wing elephant art that allowed Xiao Yan to dodge the bolt of lightning. Phew! Xiao Yan involuntarily exhaled a long breath of air as he sensed the weak strength within his body. He lifted his gaze and looked at the thunderbolt that had once again agglomerated its strength and came crashing down. His hands abruptly tightened and his body trembled. With the help of the wing elephant skill, his body instantly disappeared. The thunderbolt that was following close behind once again missed. As for Xiao Yan, he did not stop at all. Regardless of the pursuit of the bolt of lightning, before the strength in his body dissipated again, he left this area far away. At the same time, Xue Mian and Hai Linger, who were at the exit of the underwater void realm, sighed with heavy expressions. After confirming that Xiao Yan had not come out, they slowly turned around. After a moment of hesitation, they lifted their feet and entered the passage. Chapter 1040. Outside the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, Hai Zhantian and the heaven-devouring dragon stood together in front of the entrance of the empty realm, waiting anxiously. Bean-sized beads of sweat were constantly dripping down, and their hearts were almost in their throats. Time passed bit by bit. Everyone present knew that the empty realm at the bottom of the sea was difficult to preserve. Now, the complete collapse of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea was just around the corner. However, the two elders of the clan, as well as Xiao Yan, who went to rescue the people, had not come out yet. This made everyone secretly break out in cold sweat for the three of them. Hai Machen's eyes stared at the entrance of the void realm at the bottom of the sea. Although his face still maintained a calm expression, his heart was incomparably anxious. Even though he had endless confidence in Xiao Yan, he did not dare to be certain that Xiao Yan would be able to exit the void realm at this moment. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, the originally calm entrance of the empty realm at the bottom of the sea suddenly trembled. Light flickered, and then, two figures in black robes flashed out together. In an instant, Hai Zhantian and the heaven-devouring dragon, who had been staring at the entrance, immediately looked at the two people. With their powerful cultivation, they instantly recognized the two people. Ling Er. Xue Wang. The two people said in unison, and the ecstasy in their voices was needless to say. In an instant, the huge stone hanging in their hearts finally fell to the ground. The two moved together and rushed forward, each of them tightly hugging the other person in their arms. At the same time, the two elders also clearly saw the man and woman holding each other's hands tightly. They had no time to care, and only cared about the ecstasy in their hearts. Their eyes were filled with hot tears, and they almost rolled down. The two young people were also shocked by the actions of the two elders. Immediately, when they recovered, the girl also saw the blue-haired middle-aged man behind Hai Zhantian, and only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. It was her father. As a father, the latter's feelings for his daughter were naturally not less than her grandfather. However, as the leader of the clan, he had to put the clan first. In front of the clan, he always had to maintain his dignity. Until now, when he saw that his daughter was fine, the father couldn't help but tear up. It was not until a long while later that Hai Zhantian and the heaven-devouring dragon let go of the child in their arms,
but they still looked at the young man and the girl with a smile on their faces. At this moment, Hai Machun stepped forward, looked at Shui Wang, and asked, "Where's Xiaoyan?
Shouldn't he be with you?"
Noticing the black robes on the two, Hai Machun immediately knew that Xiaoyan had been with them. However, at this moment, Shui Wang and Hai Ling had successfully escaped from the underwater void realm, and Xiaoyan's whereabouts were unknown. This could not help but increase the worry in Hai Machun's heart. As soon as these words came out, the people present suddenly recovered. Indeed, they were happy about the return of Shui Wang and Hai Ling, but they seemed to have forgotten about Xiaoyan, who had entered the underwater void realm to rescue them. At this moment, they still had no idea about the situation of the latter. The only thing they knew was that Xiaoyan was still in the underwater void realm, and his situation was definitely not good. Hearing Hai Machun's words, Shui Wang and Hai Linger's faces, which had just revealed a joyful expression because of their escape, immediately darkened again. The man and woman buried their heads, and the expression on their faces was particularly solemn. Then, Shui Wang recounted what happened in the underwater void realm, including how Xiaoyan found them and blocked the demonic beasts for them in detail. Hearing Shui Wang's words, the faces of the people present changed slightly. While they were moved by Xiaoyan's actions, they also felt a sense of worry about the latter's current situation. "That kid. He'll be fine, right?" Hai Zhantian hesitantly turned his gaze to Hai Machun. The expression on his face also carried a trace of guilt as the words were spat out from his mouth. After all, the reason why Xiaoyan had entered the empty realm at the bottom of the sea was because of him. Otherwise, Xiaoyan would not have encountered such danger. Sigh. Now even I can't be sure. I can only hope that he can turn the danger into safety. He has come such a long way. This time, I don't want him to fall just like that. Letting out a long sigh, even Hai Machun felt somewhat helpless.
Hai Zhantian was speechless.
The boulder that had just been lifted from his heart was now hanging high up in the air. At the same time, the atmosphere in the arena had become inexplicably heavy once again. In fact, it was even heavier than before. Shui Wang came to the side of the young girl. The two looked at each other with worry in their eyes. The young girl frowned slightly. Her slender jade-like hand grabbed the corner of her black robe. She stared at the entrance of the underwater void realm, waiting with rapt attention. Rumble! Suddenly, the entrance of the underwater void realm trembled violently. A huge rumbling sound resounded continuously from the bottom of the sea. A huge suction force gushed out from the entrance. Fortunately, the seawater in this area was forcibly emptied by Hai Zhantian, causing the place where everyone was standing to be a huge open space. Therefore, there was no seawater pouring into the underwater void realm. However, the sudden change in the underwater void realm caused everyone's expression to change drastically, especially Hai Machun and Hai Zhantian. Their hands that were hidden under their sleeves suddenly clenched tightly. Cold sweat immediately appeared on their foreheads. Even their hearts could not help but tremble. "Xiaoyan, you must come out." Hai Machun narrowed his eyes and stared at the entrance of the underwater void realm. He suppressed the emotions in his heart and waited anxiously. At the same time, in the underwater void realm, after a difficult struggle, Xiaoyan finally entered the exit of the underwater void realm. However, almost at the same time, the entire underwater void realm had completely collapsed. The exit of the underwater void realm was also collapsing at an extremely fast speed. It was about to catch up with Xiaoyan in front of it. Once the passage completely collapsed before Xiaoyan could leave, the latter would no longer have a chance to escape. If he fell into the endless void, his fate would be unpredictable. Soon, at the end of Xiaoyan's line of sight, he could see a blue light curtain. That was the exit of the underwater void realm. As long as he passed through it, everything that happened behind him would have nothing to do with Xiaoyan. However, at this moment, the passage in front of Xiaoyan suddenly began to collapse. At the same time, the glow on the light curtain, which was still at the edge of his sight, gradually dimmed. After which, the large exit swiftly shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Once it completely disappeared, Xiaoyan would no longer be able to leave this place. In the outside world, Hai Machun and the others saw the rapidly shrinking entrance of the underwater void realm in front of them. The emotions in their hearts became even more intense. Everyone was as anxious as ants on a hot pan. While their hearts were filled with anticipation, their faces could not help but reveal a desolate expression. When the entrance of the underwater void realm turned into a palm-sized circle of light and then completely disappeared, everyone present could not help but lower their heads. The last bit of hope in their hearts was completely obliterated. However, almost at the same time, the black robe on Xuemian's body and the black robe in Hai Linger's hand quietly disappeared. Wonderful Book House.
Chapter 1041.
Outside the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, when the crowd saw that the entrance had completely disappeared, the only hope in their hearts was completely shattered. They let out a long sigh, their hearts filled with sorrow. They did not expect that although Xiao Yan had saved all the younger generation of the Sea Clan, in the end, he would lose his life. Once Xiao Yan woke up, the two Sea Clans would not be able to give him an explanation. At this moment, Hai Mochen was still staring unwillingly at the place where the empty realm had disappeared. He did not believe that with Xiao Yan's means, he would die just like that. He absolutely did not believe it. Buzz! However, at this moment, after the empty realm at the bottom of the sea disappeared, a black light spot suddenly appeared at the place where it originally stood and quickly expanded. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a huge black tent that was as tall as a person. That is. Seeing the black tent, Hai Mochen's face suddenly changed. At the same time, the few people beside him also discovered the sudden change in the scene. The few of them immediately looked over. Soon after, a miserable figure suddenly rushed out from the black tent. His body swayed a couple of times before he managed to stabilize himself in the air. He lifted his head and saw the group of people staring at him in shock. He parted his mouth and smiled.
Fortunately, I did not disappoint. I am back.
Just as he finished speaking, his body suddenly went limp and fell from the sky.
Hai Zhantian's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. He hurriedly rushed forward to catch him.
After a quick check, he turned his head and nodded at the worried Hai Mo-chen. He said, Hai Mo-chen, Hai Mo-chen.
It's okay. He just fainted because he was too weak.
As soon as these words came out, Hai Mochen's heart relaxed. At the same time, a relieved smile appeared on the faces of everyone present. Xue Crown and Hai Ling looked at each other and smiled affectionately. Xue Crown reached out and held the girl's soft and boneless hand in his palm, never letting go. On the side, the two fathers noticed this scene, but they looked at each other and nodded with a smile. They did not say anything. When Xiao Yan woke up once again, he realized that he was in a dormitory.
He stood up and looked around.
This dormitory was filled with decorations that were unique to the sea. Sea reefs and corals were everywhere. Even the furniture was the same. There was no one else in the room. The environment was also extremely quiet. When Xiao Yan spread his spiritual strength outwards, the scene of a large, strangely shaped building immediately surfaced in his mind. At the same time, he sensed that he was currently located in the deep sea. The area that Xiao Yan was currently in was different from other places. Although he was in the deep sea, he was in another area that was opened up. It was not covered by the sea, and it was more like a human land. Through some of the landmark buildings, it was not difficult to tell that Xiao Yan should be in the sea shark tribe. Moreover, his position seemed to be near the center of the entire tribe. When his spiritual power spread out, he was shocked by the size of the sea tribe. In this vast underwater world, countless buildings spread out in all directions. Even with Xiao Yan's spiritual power, he was still unable to see the end of these buildings. One could imagine the size of the sea shark tribe. One could see a large part of the big picture. After recovering, Xiao Yan also realized that the dou qi in his body had completely recovered. Even some of the injuries on his body had disappeared. At this moment, Xiao Yan's condition had already recovered to its peak. Xiao Yan could not help but let out a long sigh as he sensed the abundant strength in his body. This kind of feeling of having strength was much better. When he recalled everything that he had encountered in the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, that kind of weak feeling from inside out really caused him to have a lingering fear. In the end, if he had not used all his strength to agglomerate the great way of the void and used it to escape from that place of death, it was likely that Xiao Yan would have been swallowed by the endless darkness. Withdrawing his thoughts, Xiao Yan suddenly had a thought. Soon after, a pale blue virtual image swiftly rose from behind him. Fortunately, Xiao Yan controlled it and it did not touch the roof. Otherwise, this dormitory would have been destroyed by Xiao Yan. Letting out a soft breath, Xiao Yan turned around to look at the pale blue virtual image that had been agglomerated behind him. A smile involuntarily surfaced on the corner of his mouth. The wing elephant skill,
the third skill of the Four Saint Manifestation skill. If he could successfully practice it, he could attempt to agglomerate the final skill, the Giant Elephant skill. Back then, according to the description of the Four Saint Manifestation skill, if he could master these four skills through a comprehensive study, the might of the Giant Elephant skill would even be comparable to an E-class Do skill. This kind of temptation was something that even Xiao Yan could not help but be moved by. Of course, the current him was still very far away from that step. Let's not talk about when he would be able to agglomerate the Giant Elephant skill. Just the current Xiao Yan was far from being able to unleash the strength of an E-class Do skill. However, it was also because of this that from a certain point of view, this also gave Xiao Yan a certain amount of motivation. With a thought, the virtual image behind him disappeared. After musing for a moment, Xiao Yan's mind looked inside and came to his mind. At this moment, a blue-colored energy light cluster was slowly floating in his mind. This was the fragment of the flame mantra that Hai Machin had given him. Now, Xiao Yan planned to use this opportunity to refine it. This could be considered as resolving one of the concerns in his heart. As soon as he thought of doing it, the heavenly flame within the vortex in his body immediately surged upward and swiftly entered his mind. Under Xiao Yan's control, it turned into a flame medicinal cauldron that swiftly wrapped around the blue-colored energy light cluster in front of him. Immediately, he began to refine it without any hesitation. The refining process this time around was much simpler and faster. With Xiao Yan's current cultivation, refining this fragment of the flame mantra did not have any difficulty. In less than 2 hours, the flame mantra fragment was successfully refined. At the same time, the flame mantra chi method within Xiao Yan's body also involuntarily began to circulate. Immediately, a wild and ferocious suction force surged out from within Xiao Yan's body. The energy within the entire dormitory, as well as the outside world, was attracted by this special suction force and involuntarily gathered toward Xiao Yan. Feeling the strange state of the energy in the surrounding air, Xiao Yan involuntarily raised his eyebrows. From the looks of it, the refining of the flame mantra had also triggered the qi within his body. Perhaps, he could even use this opportunity to break through to an 8-star Do D. As he thought of this, Xiao Yan immediately parted his mouth and smiled. He swiftly sat cross-legged and entered into a training state. He began to concentrate on absorbing and refining the natural energy. What's going on? The sudden change immediately alerted the patrolling Sea clan members in the vicinity. Immediately, quite a number of people gathered towards Xiao Yan's location from all directions. However, just as they appeared in the air above Xiao Yan's dormitory, 4 human figures suddenly appeared out of thin air in a ghost-like manner. They waved their hands and stopped the Sea clan soldiers who were about to step forward to investigate. When the crowd saw this, they respectfully bowed to the 4 of them. Then, with suspicious gazes, they all retreated. In the air, Hai Zhantian and Hai Machin by the side exchanged glances. The latter smiled slightly and said, "Looks like he has refined that portion of the flame mantra chi method. Moreover, from the looks of his current posture, it seems that he wants to use this opportunity to break through." By the side, the heaven-devouring dragon and the tribe leader of the sea shark tribe involuntarily raised their eyebrows when they heard this. They recalled the frightening fighting strength that Xiao Yan had displayed in front of them earlier. When he was a 7-star Do D, he was already able to easily suppress a 9-star Do D expert. If the latter's cultivation was to advance another level, just how frightening would his fighting strength be? Thinking of this, even with the status of these 2 people, they could not help but gently inhale a breath of cool air. At the same time, the favorable impression they had of Xiao Yan in their hearts also swiftly rose. The favor of saving their lives was enough to cause them to be a little more courteous to Xiao Yan. However, if it was related to the latter's future potential, they had no choice but to treat him seriously. Do Pa Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Do Pa Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Chapter 1042. In the void, the patriarch of the Sea Shark clan, who had regained his senses, immediately looked at Hai Zhantian in front of him and hurriedly said respectfully, "Father, I suggest that you immediately pass the order to our Sea Shark clan. From now on, Mr. Xiao Yan is a distinguished guest." On the side, Sky-devouring dragon raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Indeed, a simple good impression couldn't win people's hearts. Only the most practical action was the most effective way to win people over. However, when the former's voice just reached Hai Zhantian's ears, the latter curled his lips and said in a deep voice, "By the time you think of this step, the entire Sea clan has already known in advance."
The old me has already informed the first elders of the two large sea clans and asked them to pass down the order.
From today onwards, Xiao Yan will be the joint honorary elder of our two large sea clans. Other than the clan head and the elder in charge, everyone else must greet him when they meet. You still dare to call him a VIP? Humph, Xiao Hai, you have underestimated him.
The low words immediately made Hai Shou lower his head in shame.
At the same time, even Sky-Devouring Dragon couldn't help but be startled. He didn't expect that Hai Zhantian's order had already been passed to the two sea clans. As the patriarch, he didn't know until now. Subsequently, the four of them quieted down. Under the lead of Hai Machin, they landed in the courtyard where Xiao Yan was. They sat in the courtyard and waited for Xiao Yan quietly. Soon after, the young couple, Xue Mian and Hai Linger, also arrived. In the blink of an eye, it was already 3 days later. In the dormitory, Xiao Yan's eyes, which had been closed for 3 days, slowly opened at this moment. The moment his eyes opened, there was a flash of white flame in his dark eyes. At the same time, the aura in Xiao Yan's body completely stabilized.
Phew! Xiao Yan let out a long breath of turbid air that had been suppressed in his chest. He carefully sensed the strength in his body that was many times stronger than it was 3 days ago.
A smile involuntarily appeared on his face. The breakthrough this time around was as smooth as water flowing when the conditions were right.
From the circulation of the qi method, to the absorption and refinement of the natural energy, the expansion of the vortex space, and the strengthening of the overall quality of his body, all aspects appeared to be extremely smooth.
This was also due to Xiao Yan's continuous fighting during these few months.
The continuous exhaustion of his body and the accumulation of strength caused everything to be so smooth and easy.
Sure enough, fighting was the best way to improve the speed of cultivation. After recovering, Xiao Yan got up and washed his face. He walked out of the room. At this moment, a couple of figures were standing in the courtyard outside of the room. They were seated beside a stone table in the middle of the courtyard. Noticing that Xiao Yan had left, the gazes of the few people present were also thrown over. Seeing the group of people in front of him, Xiao Yan's figure, which had just stepped out of the door, couldn't help but slightly pause. He was slightly stunned as he looked at the people in front of him. After a long while, Xiao Yan dryly coughed twice and hurriedly went out.
He respectfully cupped his fists towards the few people and said, "This junior has made the seniors wait for a long time."
Ha, there's no need to wait. We originally wanted to see how your body was doing, but coincidentally saw that you were breaking through. Since we were bored, we might as well sit here and wait for you. The few of them stood up and walked towards Xiao Yan. They looked at each other, then Hai Machin indifferently laughed out loud. The rest of the people beside him also smiled and nodded their heads.
Soon after, Hai Machin smiled and opened his mouth to ask, "How is it?"
After refining the remnant scroll of the flame mantra, your cultivation has also broken through. Yes, I have already broken through to the 8th star. It can be considered an unexpected surprise. When these words were spoken, Hai Machin and the other 3 experts from the Sea clan present were not surprised. However, the expressions of Xue Mian and Hai Ling behind them instantly became extremely shocked. This was especially the case for Xue Mian. His face was stunned as he looked at Xiao Yan. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Xiao Yan, Elder Xiao Yan, you said that you have broken through to the 8th star? How is this possible? You had clearly relied on your own strength to defeat so many Do D-class magical beasts in the empty realm at the bottom of the sea. However, how is it possible that your cultivation is only that of an 8-star Do D? Xue Mian's words were not only the thoughts of Xue Mian alone. There were even countless people from the entire Sea clan who held such thoughts. No one could believe that a 7-star Do D would be able to unleash a strength that even a 9-star Do D would be afraid to avoid. Unfortunately, after the matter of Xiao Yan defeating the people from the Yuan mansion with one punch spread, the voices of doubt within the entire Sea clan gradually died down. This was especially so after the upper echelons of the Sea clan tacitly agreed that this matter had happened. All the younger generation of the Sea clan no longer doubted it. However, Xue Mian and Hai Ling who had just escaped from the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, were naturally unaware of this. However, they clearly understood that Xiao Yan in front of them possessed an extremely frightening fighting strength. Based on their evaluation in their hearts, Xiao Yan's strength was definitely the strongest below the origin transformation realm. However, they had never imagined that Xiao Yan's true cultivation was not even a 9-star Do D. Cuckoo. I'm afraid that this matter is a long story. However, Brother Xuemian, why do you address me as an elder? Xiao Yan laughed faintly. He did not speak any further on this topic. His tone changed as he noticed a detail in Xuemian's words. Cuckoo, let me explain this. After which, Hai Mochan smiled and explained the reason behind this to Xiao Yan. The latter pondered for a moment in his heart when he heard this and immediately understood Hai Zhantian's intention. While he felt that it was funny in his heart, Xiao Yan also accepted it with a grateful smile. What a joke.
It would be a lie if he said that he was not tempted by the joint title of elder of the two large sea clan. Even if it was someone else, forget about a Dodi like him, it was likely that even an expert at the Origin King class would be tempted.
Soon after, Xiao Yan seemed to have thought of something.
His eyebrows twitched as he hurriedly looked at Hai Mochan and asked with a frown.
Elder, may I know how the current situation of my ancestor is? Seeing the worried expression on Xiao Yan's face, Hai Mochan smiled faintly and said, in order to support the empty realm at the bottom of the sea, your ancestor finally exhausted his spiritual strength and has temporarily entered a deep slumber. Xiao Yan's expression immediately changed when these words were said. Soon after, Hai Mochan continued to speak. Fortunately, with the enormous resources of the Sea Clan, I have selected a few medicinal ingredients that can help him recover his spiritual strength. After refining them, he is currently slowly absorbing them. I believe that he will wake up soon. Moreover, the recovery speed of his spiritual strength will likely shock you when that time comes. As Hai Mochan spoke, he also handed a milky white ring to Xiao Yan. Hai Mochan's spiritual origin was within it.
The corners of Hai Mochan's and the heaven-devouring dragon's mouths involuntarily twitched when they heard Hai Mochan's words.
That was natural. In order to help Xiao Xian recover his spiritual strength, Hai Mochan had unceremoniously plundered all the medicinal ingredients that could help with spiritual strength from the two large sea clan. Some of the medicinal ingredients could be said to be unique. Even they could not bear to part with them. Who would have thought that they would end up benefiting Xiao Xian? Hearing Hai Mochan's words, Xiao Yan probed the situation within the ring in his hand. He sensed the incomparably large spiritual strength and involuntarily felt a shock. Adding this to the pained expressions of the two clan heads, he immediately came to a realization in his heart. Hai Mochan had robbed the entire Sea Clan for him. Even with Xiao Yan's temperament, he could not help but gulp when he thought of that, as if he was afraid that the two of them would seek him out in the future. On the other hand, Hai Mochan and Hai Mochan did not seem to care at all. When Xiao Yan withdrew his thoughts, Hai Mochan hesitated slightly before looking at him with a smile again. Little guy, since your ancestor is fine now, and you've gotten another surprise, why don't I give you another surprise? Since there are so many good things, I'll give you another surprise. As he spoke, Hai Mochan extended his hand. Under Xiao Yan's curious gaze, a deep blue flame suddenly rose with a poof. It was the Sea Heart Flame. Chapter 1043. Sea Heart Flame. Xiao Yan's expression immediately solidified when he saw the blue-colored flame slowly rising from Hai Mochan's hand. His mouth involuntarily let out an exclamation. His ultimate goal in coming to the North Sea was the Sea Heart Flame. He didn't expect that Hai Mochan would take the initiative to deliver the Sea Heart Flame to him before he could even open his mouth. Haha, since I'll have to give it to you sooner or later, I won't trouble you. I've lived in the North Sea for 1,000 years, and I really don't want to leave this place. This sea is where my everything depends on. Just like you said, I really can't let go of Beihai College, so I plan to give the Sea Heart Flame to you before you leave. Hearing Hai Mochan's words, the people around him were stunned. The two patriarchs looked at each other, and finally looked at Hai Zhantian. They were very clear about the relationship between the two people in front of them. It could be said that Jiao Jiao and Meng Meng were inseparable. Hai Zhantian found it very difficult to accept that Hai Mochan wanted to leave, but just as Hai Mochan explained to him, all of this was his responsibility. Life had to be faced with many separations, but the meaning was different. Xiao Yan fell silent for a moment after hearing Hai Mochan's words. He was naturally happy to be able to obtain the Sea Heart Flame, but at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of regret and self-blame for the friendship between the two old men. If it weren't for his appearance, the two old men would have been able to accompany each other as before. Haha, okay, it's no big deal. I've made up my mind. Little guy, you should make some preparations before refining the heavenly flame during this period of time. I know that if I let you refine it now, You won't be able to start in a hurry. First, find a place to refine it at the bottom of the sea. Seeing the expressions on everyone's faces, Hai Machin smiled and looked at the silent Hai Zhantian beside him.
He patted the latter's shoulder and said, "Old man, in the future, my Beihai College will have to rely on you."
I've already sent the news back. From now on, you'll be the vice dean of Beihai College. If there's any big matter in the college, I'll have to rely on you. You're leaving, but you're leaving such a big mess to me. Why do you want me to be the vice dean? Dean? Hai Zhantian furrowed his brows, a look of disgust appearing on his fleshy face. Hai Mo Chen, on the other hand, grinned and laughed heartily. Of course it's still me, ha ha ha. Hai Zhantian fell silent. Then, Hai Machin once again looked at Xiao Yan and said, "Little guy, remember, the place to refine the heavenly flame must first be some deep sea or deep abyss. That will more or less have a suppressive effect on the heavenly flame. Moreover, the temperature of the deep sea will also decrease. This will more or less help you in refining the heavenly flame.
As for the medicinal herbs and pills needed in the process, I think that as an alchemist, you don't need me to solve this problem for you."
Hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded. He had also thought of this point. Refining the heavenly flame at the bottom of the sea was a unique refining environment. And with Xiao Yan's temperament, to refine the heavenly flame, he must find an excellent place. However, when the people behind him heard Hai Machin say that Xiao Yan was actually an alchemist, their originally calm faces once again revealed a shocked expression.
It was unexpected that the Xiao Yan in front of him would actually be an alchemist while possessing such a frightening fighting strength that defied the heavens.
This identity was like a heavy bomb that immediately exploded in the hearts of these people. But soon, when Hai Shou and the heaven-devouring dragon came back to their senses, the heaven-devouring dragon took a step forward without hesitation. He faced Xiao Yan and smiled. "If you need a deep abyss, then go to my sea serpent clan. The hidden dragon abyss in the holy altar of my sea serpent clan is the deepest abyss in the entire North Sea. In addition, it is also the place where my clan worships all year round. It contains a large amount of Yin Qi in my clan's bloodline. It should be the best place to refine the heavenly flame." Hearing this, Hai Machin and Hai Zhantian immediately nodded. They agreed with this point. On the other hand, Hai Shou looked at the heaven-devouring dragon with some hesitation and said, "But the hidden dragon abyss is the holy altar of the Sea Serpent clan after all. For countless years, there has been no precedent of outsiders being able to enter. If we do this, won't those old fellows of the Sea Serpent clan—" "Ha ha ha, brother Hai, you naturally don't have to worry about this. Xiao Yan is now the great hero of my sea clan. Everyone is grateful to him in their hearts. Moreover, have you forgotten that Xiao Yan is now the joint elder of both our clans? How can he be counted as an outsider? In my opinion, even without this identity, those old fellows won't object either." The heaven-devouring flood dragon laughed out loud. The hearts of the few people present relaxed one after another. After which, Hai Machin looked at Xiao Yan and said, "Although the location has been chosen, why don't you go and take a look yourself? After all, the final decision is still in your hands. It's up to you to decide whether it's suitable or not." Xiao Yan nodded when he heard that. Hai Machin was right. Although the elders present all agreed that the hidden dragon abyss was suitable, it was only their subjective opinion after all. The final decision was still up to Xiao Yan himself. "Then why don't Xiao Yan come with me and take a look first?" The heaven-devouring dragon nodded in agreement. After all, they were outsiders when it came to refining heavenly flames. There were many things that they could not decide just because they wanted to. Afterwards, Xiao Yan followed the heaven-devouring dragon and left the Sea Shark clan's residence first. They passed through the water and quickly rushed to the Sea Serpent clan's residence. As for Hai Machin and the others, they stayed behind for the time being. Soon, under the guidance of the heaven-devouring dragon, the two of them arrived at the Sea Serpent clan's residence. At a glance, although the type of buildings here was slightly different from the Sea Shark clan's, the overall scale also made Xiao Yan feel emotional. With the heaven-devouring dragon leading the way, the two of them quickly arrived at a huge stone platform somewhere in the Sea Serpent clan's residence. The couple of guards from the Sea Serpent tribe, who were standing at the edge of the stone platform, hurriedly bowed respectfully when the two of them appeared. When their eyes noticed Xiao Yan, they rotated their eyes and immediately guessed the latter's identity. On top of the shock in their hearts, they did not dare to slight Xiao Yan as they bowed and greeted him. Xiao Yan nodded with a smile. After that, His gaze fell on the huge stone platform in front of him. The entire stone platform was formed by layers of high steps, like a pyramid without a tip.
In the middle of it, there was a huge circular hole that led straight to the bottom of the sea.
Due to its depth, the hole looked extremely deep and dark at a glance. With just a glance, one could not help but feel a chill run down one's spine. Before Xianxia could approach the entrance of the cave, he sensed a deep chill that was transmitted from the bottom of the cave from a great distance.
This kind of chill caused him to feel a chill on his back, even though he had the protection of the heavenly flame.
This kind of chill not only penetrated one's bones but also caused one's soul to tremble. According to the heaven-devouring dragon, this hole was the place that Xianxia borrowed to refine heavenly flames, the hidden dragon abyss. The Reincarnated Flame Emperor. The Reincarnated Flame Emperor. Chapter 1044. As he felt the bone-chilling chill coming from the cave, Xianxia was delighted. That's right, this was exactly what he needed. Haha, how is it? Are you satisfied? The heaven-devouring flood dragon understood in his heart when he saw the joyous expression on Xianxia's face. Not bad. This hidden dragon abyss is indeed worthy of being the sacred altar of the sea serpent tribe. Just the outer area is already so cold. If I go deeper, the cold will definitely be even more intense. Perhaps it will be much easier for me to refine the heavenly flame. Xianxia smiled with satisfaction. The hidden dragon abyss was simply a sacred place to refine the heavenly flame. It could not be more suitable. All right, since you are satisfied, I can rest assured. Wait here for a moment. I will go and inform a few old fellows in the tribe.
This will prevent them from saying that I, the tribe leader, did not inform them in advance.
Hearing this, Xianxia nodded his head in understanding.
This kind of relationship within the clan was indeed very troublesome.
Even if the clan leader made a decision, there were many things that needed to be agreed upon by the elders. Moreover, it was like the sacred altar within the clan. Very quickly, the heaven-devouring dragon left this place, and Xianxia slowly walked to the front of the hidden dragon abyss. As Xianxia approached, the originally pitch-black hidden dragon abyss suddenly underwent some changes. In the pitch-black underwater cave, specks of blue light were actually reflected. The light gradually became clearer. When Xianxia arrived at the edge of the hidden dragon abyss, the entire cave was actually filled with bright blue light. Even though the cave was still deep and bottomless, it was eye-catching. Even some of the grooves in the cave were similarly reflecting the gorgeous light. Xianxia's heart involuntarily felt surprised when he sensed this. His body took a couple of steps back and the light in front of his eyes dimmed. At this moment, he finally understood in his heart. It seemed that this hidden dragon abyss had a special design that allowed one to see the light within it only when one approached it. The kind of darkness that one could see in the distance was also a kind of protective method of the sea serpent tribe. After all, no one would be willing to touch something that would cause fear at first sight. However, just as Xianxia was curiously sizing up the latent dragon abyss, a burly figure walked up the stairs from the edge of the stone platform not far away. When the guards around the stone platform saw the burly man, they immediately showed a respectful look and quickly bowed to the latter. The burly man also waved his hand roughly, and his face still had a gloomy expression that couldn't be erased. Because of the previous incident, he had been punished by the Elders Guild to patrol the entire Sea Serpent clan and was not allowed to leave the clan for 3 months. In the past, he had never suffered such humiliation. This man was the bloodline leader of the Sea Flood Dragon clan, who had been forced back by Xianxia on the Snake Island not long ago with the help of the strange flame. It was because of the failure of the Yuan estate selection that Xue was punished by the Council of Elders, which led to this scene. Damn it! It's all that human brat's fault. With a furious snort, the burly man suddenly raised his head. At the same time, a figure in a black robe appeared in his sight. Looking at the slightly familiar back, the burly man's squinted eyes slowly widened. In the end, deep within his eyes, there was a ball of deep anger. Human brat! It's you! You actually dare to appear in my clan. There's a path to heaven but you don't take it. There's no door to hell but you walk into it yourself. Raging anger gathered crazily in Commander Xue's eyes. Back then, he was unable to kill Xianxia because of Wang Ziyuan's obstruction. Today, Xianxia actually appeared in his clan with great fanfare. No matter what, he had to release the anger that he had been suppressing in his heart for more than a month. Brat, go to hell! You caused the old me to be punished for 3 months. Today, I will let you have a taste of what it means to beg for death. With a furious cry, Commander Shui did not allow any explanation.
His feet stomped heavily on the ground in front of the stunned gazes around the stone stage.
His body immediately charged forward. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared behind Xiao Yan. A fist smashed toward the latter's head. Xiao Yan's expression suddenly changed in the face of the attack that suddenly came from behind him.
He did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. A thought passed through his heart and the dou qi in his body was hurriedly circulated.
At the same time, a blue-colored illusionary image was agglomerated behind him in the blink of an eye. Soon after, Xiao Yan's body moved to the side when the punch came. Only then did the fist, which was filled with a sharp wind, narrowly brush past Xiao Yan's ear. The sharp sound of rushing wind caused Xiao Yan's eardrums to feel pain.
Half of his face was distorted, but his body did not dare to pause even a little.
He hurriedly dodged again when Commander Shui's punch was about to land. Xiao Yan's heart involuntarily felt stunned when he saw the sharp attack of Commander Shui in front of him. The word fate was really ingenious and difficult to grasp. It was unexpected that he would once again meet Commander Shui at this moment. It must be said that it was really a case of enemies meeting on a narrow road. A month ago, he was worried that he would be blocked by this fellow. It was unexpected that they would actually meet again today. After dodging a couple of times, Xiao Yan could not avoid being injured by a couple of punches from this fellow. A couple of large holes were immediately formed on the black robe that he was wearing. At the same time, a couple of bright red fist imprints were left on Xiao Yan's body. It was not until this moment that the guards around the stone platform reacted in shock. Then, their faces changed drastically as they hurriedly stepped forward. They did not care about their own safety as they surrounded Commander Shui, who was about to attack Xiao Yan again. Only then was the latter forced to stop his actions.
With the obstruction of these guards, the sudden change in the field finally stopped.
However, Commander Shui still had an angry look on his face. His gaze swept across the people in front of him fiercely as he scolded, "What? Are you looking for death? You actually stopped me for a human brat." At this time, Commander Shui was filled with anger. He did not have the time to think about the reason behind this.
However, the guards in front of him all had a drastic change in expression as they hurriedly shouted, "Commander Shui, you can't hurt this sir.
He is the joint elder of the 2C clans specially invited by Senior Hai Zhantian. You can't hurt him." When Hai Zhantian was mentioned, the pupils of the lineage leader suddenly shrunk. The fury that filled his heart immediately disappeared by more than half. The thoughts in his mind also immediately became clear. Indeed, he had also heard about this matter.
It was said that even the tribe leader attached great importance to this matter. After thinking for a while in his heart, Commander Shui's flushed face quickly turned pale.
"Joint elder." After spitting out these few words with a sluggish expression, Xingling Ling's heart instantly turned to ashes. Joint elder. That position was comparable to the first elder in the clan. At this moment, he had actually made a move against him. This time, it was likely that he would never be able to repay the punishment on him. However, it was also at this time that the heaven-devouring flood dragon, who had left not long ago, returned once again. At the same time, there were a few more elders behind him. They were the leaders of the Sea Flood Dragon clan.